What up? What up? What up? What's up? What's good, everybody? It's your boy Sports PSP. Welcome to another episode of the Sports PSP podcast. Hope everyone is enjoying a fantastic Friday evening. Hope everyone had a wonderful day coming off work, school, whatever the case may be. I am your guy, Sports PSP. Alongside with me, the great panel that I have from Georgia's own. I got BRF Sports in the building. How you doing, brother?
Oh man, I can't complain. Life is pretty good. Another week of work behind me. Ready for the weekend. A lot of crazy stuff going. Yeah, I mean, I'm ready. I'm ready to get to talking about some of the stuff that's been going on. Particularly, man, NFL free agency. This was about as wild a free agency period as I've seen in years. So I'm definitely ready. I'm definitely ready to talk about that amongst other things. And always a pleasure to shed a spotlight with you two brothers, man. I'm ready to get it in.
Always a pleasure having you on, BRF. And of course, we cannot start the Sports PSP podcast with my guy, Undisputed World Champ. Please go like and subscribe to his podcast. Please go like and subscribe to his IG, TikTok. Also, go check out his latest videos, one in particularly about Joel Embiid. Please go check that out. But anyway, brother, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Finally getting back to the spring, man. This weather's heating up out here in Georgia. And man, I'm just happy to be here on the highlight of Friday nights. Always a privilege, a pleasure, and an honor to be here on the PSP podcast and to share the stage with my brothers, man, my closest guys, BRF from the state of Georgia and the Garden State's own PSP, man. I'm glad to see you guys, man. It's been a good week this week.
Yeah, can't complain, man. Can't complain. Also, please go shout out to Mama PSP doing her thing, helping me out with the Sports PSP pod. Give Mama Sports PSP some love as well. Also, a quick shout out to other good people, other good women as well, because we all know it's Women's Month. Shout out to my girl Kaylin, who's the manager of the office. Appreciate everything that you do for me as the advice. Appreciate to my girl D, who's like a big sister. Appreciate Maddie. Appreciate Angie. Every woman that I know. Hey, man, it's Women's Month. Make sure you take the time to say to a woman that you love and respect, thank you. Thank you for everything that you've done for me through good and through bad. Thank you. But, fellas, let's talk about the free agency. BRF, I should have had you on for the show on Sunday. I apologize. But Seattle, man, they traded DK Metcalf to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They got a second round pick. They traded Geno Smith to the Las Vegas Raiders. They get a third round pick. And they get Sam Darnold. Okay, a 3-year, was it $100 million something contract, champ? 3-year, $100 million contract.
Yes, I'm looking at it right now. 3-year, $100 million contract. And I think it could come out to like, one moment, let me keep scrolling. I think it could come out to like 116 max.
Yes. But to me, the team who won free agency so far in the offseason, has got to be the Chicago Bears. To quote Undisputed World Champ, and he's been on record, quarterback cannot throw behind his back. Look at what the Chicago Bears did. They got in Joe Thuney. They traded oh my God. The Bears traded a 4th round pick just to get a all-pro guard. And then on top of that, Ben Johnson, who's their head coach, there should be no excuses for Caleb Williams not to be sacked. Last year, he was sacked. He was the most sacked quarterback in the NFL last year. And look, man, Caleb Williams being behind that offensive line, if you're still constantly being sacked, look, champ, there's no surprise. Mobile quarterbacks, they do run themselves into a lot of sacks. History says it. Look at Justin Fields. Look at Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Caleb Williams. If you can't figure out to protect yourself, you already got the offensive line, but if you can't find a way to protect yourself, I don't know what to tell you. Ryan Pace, the GM of the Chicago Bears, he knows he's on the hot seat because if he can't figure out a way to put Caleb Williams in the best situation possible, I don't know what to say. Then my Commanders. I've been preaching for an offensive line. I've been preaching, dying begging for an offensive line. And the Houston Texans traded Laramie Tunsil to the Commanders. CJ Stroud was the second most quarterback in the NFL behind Caleb Williams. And now, without him, how the hell is CJ Stroud going to be throwing, champ? How, BRF, how is that going to happen? And then, of course, the Philadelphia Eagles, they let go of some players. They let go of Darius Slay. They let go of Josh Sweat. No surprise there. They're moving forward into a different direction, a younger standpoint. But hey, Chicago has won so far the free agency, and the Vikings too. They got themselves an offensive line. They were able to get Jonathan Allen from my Commanders. Unfortunately for Washington, we didn't trade him. We should have traded him. We should have got something in return. Unfortunately, we didn't do that. No surprise, the Dallas Cowboys didn't really do much. And I did love the fact that DeMarcus Lawrence, by the way, a player who played for the Cowboys for 11 years, talked about how the Dallas Cowboys, how they haven't won anything. And then, of course, Michael Parsons responding, hey, look, even though the Dallas Cowboys, they haven't won anything, but still, they just find a way to get their headlines. And unfortunately for Mama Champ, you raised one hell of a son, but I think it's best for you to move on from being a Dallas Cowboys fan, because if you continuously dealing with all this stomach and pain that they've put you through for so long, hey, it's about time for you to find a different team. I'm not saying you have to join the New Orleans Saints, because I'm quite sure Champ would have a problem with you joining the Saints, or he calls them the Eights. Chicago, man, to me, they've done it. They won with the free agency. There should be no excuse for Caleb Williams not to flourish. Washington, we still have to address some needs on the defense, but the Laramie Tunsil, that was a big one for us. Philly, they're moving into a different direction. They're heading to a younger generation. Seattle, I love the fact that they got draft picks, though. They moved on from DK Metcalf. They traded him. Tyler Lockett is no longer there. They did pick up Cooper Kupp. Let's not forget that, though. But I think Chicago has won the free agency, guys, so far. They've won the offseason. And plus, we still got a month and a half away from the draft. But those are my thoughts. BRF, the floor is yours. And unfortunately for you and for Champ, the Falcons, they let go of Grady Jarrett. He's now with Chicago as well.
I do like them signing Leonard Floyd, though. I think that's one of the more underrated free agency signings of the free agency period so far. Leonard Floyd is an underrated signing. I mean, the dude is like a guaranteed 9 to 10 sacks a year. So I definitely like the Leonard Floyd signing from our standpoint. And they've made a few decent signings. I mean, Morgan Fox, formerly from the Chargers, signing him. I think right now they're not really doing too much as far as spending, because I feel like I just feel like they got something crazy in the works, but we'll see as far as the next week go, because they're still in the Trey Hendrickson sweepstakes, as crazy as that sound. So we'll just see how that go. But as far as who's won free agency for me, it's either Chicago or Washington. I mean, just in terms of the sheer impact players that they've brought in to their franchise. Chicago getting Joe Tunney, Chicago getting Drew Dahlman, who was like one of the breakout, more improved players in the league last year at center. So I definitely can appreciate Chicago really vamping up that offensive line and telling Caleb Williams, hey, bro, we doing what we can to get you an offensive line. Now it's up to you to keep your butt on your feet and make all the necessary throws and the plays to help Chicago, at the very least, contend for a wild card spot next year. I definitely love the improvement I'm seeing Chicago's trying to make with their offensive line. And then the Washington Commanders, to get Deebo Samuel, to get Laramie Tunsil. I feel like that just immediately solves two positions of need right there, because they still got a little work to do, but I love Washington getting Laramie Tunsil. I love the fact that they're trying to improve that offensive line. You got Laramie Tunsil. You're going to bring him in. You're going to protect Jaden Daniels' blind side. Definitely love that move. Deebo Samuel and Terry McLaurin, I think they're going to be a scary duo I think they're going to be a scary duo for Jay Daniels, and with Debo being the Swiss Army knife that he is, being able to catch the ball as a wide receiver, being able to use him out of the backfield as far as like being able to run the ball on certain plays. Washington definitely got a new X factor to that offense, and I definitely I think Debo Samuel could do some good things underneath Cliff Kingsbury and his offense and his mind, being able to call plays, being able to dissect things and come up with things. So I'm definitely liking what I see there. And Seattle sneakily, even though they did trade DK Metcalf. I mean, I know everybody's like, oh man, they gave Sam Darnold all this money and all that stuff, and I get it. Sam Darnold, like when the pressure ramped up, he was no good last year. Like late in the season, in that playoff game against the Rams, he was no good. But say what you want, he was one of the most improved players in the league last year. You can arguably say he was the most improved player in the league last year, just coming from what he had been through pretty much his entire career, whether it was with the Jets, whether it was, with the Carolina Panthers, just basically we're calling this man a bust, to this man being in the MVP talks for much of 2024. So Seattle getting Sam Darnold, Seattle getting Cooper Kupp, and then you still have Jackson Smith-Njigba, who was one of the breakout stars of 2024. So and you still have Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, who come into this season as one of the better running back duos in the league. So Seattle, I would not sleep on that offense sneakily. And Noah Fant, who kind of found a little renaissance last year in Seattle, having a good season. So I wouldn't sleep on the Seattle Seahawks offense if things kind of click and they're able to find their footing, particularly with Sam Darnold as a new quarterback. Seattle sneakily has a decent offense that can do some things next year. And as far as like other signings go, I love Devontae Adams going to the Rams. That was one of my favorite pickups, because him and Puka Nacua as a duo are going to be so deadly. And because to me, Devontae Adams is still a tier 1 receiver in the National Football League. He's not as fast as he was at his prime in Green Bay, but he's still one of the elite route runners in the league. He still has really good hands. He can make pretty much any catch you ask him to make. I think he's going to come in there with a chip on his shoulder with something to prove. And it's not like, and you can't double him because you got to worry about Puka Nacua on the other side. So it's not like you can double either one. So both of them are going to see a lot of single coverage. So I expect Matthew Stafford to do some things with both of these brothers next year. I expect them to do pretty good things on that offense. Yeah, this free agency period has been like so just Myles Garrett. Oh, okay, you got me, Myles. You got me. Hey, if you want to stay in Cleveland, my brother, that's on you. I mean, for $160 million, I'd probably stay too. But as far as I'm concerned, with Myles Garrett is concerned, you can't complain about the Cleveland Browns franchise anymore. I mean, you were basically all on the lines of, I want to win. They're not doing enough to win. I want to win. Trade me somewhere where I want to win. And then they throw 4 years, $160 million in your face, and you shrivel up like a raisin. You take it and you go back. So I mean, he really has. I'm just telling you like it is, man. He's got no say so as far as he can't complain about what the Cleveland Browns do as a franchise anymore. He can't complain because he took the money and he went back. So if they're going 5-11, if they're going 5-12, 6-11, if they're not making the playoffs, but yet he's still being able to put up these insane numbers on the defensive side of the ball, what are you going to say? You took that money and you stayed. So you can't complain. And same thing with Max Crosby staying in Vegas. But I mean, I feel like for some reason, I feel like
it's a hell of a lot easier staying in Vegas with the money as opposed to Cleveland, Ohio, and also the no state income taxes.
That's true, but Vegas is still trash. So I mean, state tax or not, Vegas is still not the greatest franchise to play with. So I'm
talking about the city BRF.
I get it, but the team still sucks. I don't give a damn how nice the city look. The team still sucks. I mean, and sometimes you got to think about: do I want to stay here because it's pretty, or do I just want to go somewhere and win? And I mean, hey,
unfortunately, it doesn't seem like between the priority.
I feel like between the two franchises, Vegas, I give them slightly more of a chance to maybe find lightning in the bottle and maybe do something. Maybe do something. I don't see it, but I mean, you just never know. I mean,
They got
I
Pete
mean,
Carroll.
I like that. I've been I was a fan of the Pete Carroll move. I I was a fan of the Pete Carroll move when he was hired because I do feel like he's going to bring some stability. He's going to bring that necessary leadership. Plus, with the vets that they do have there, like a Max Crosby, they could possibly do something. The Vegas Raiders could be one of those teams that just come out of nowhere and shock people and possibly do something. You never know. It's just a matter of, I think the biggest thing with them is who's going to be their quarterback, because Gardner Minshew is not. Gardner. We're a long
He's
ways
down
away
in
from
Kansas
Gardner
City.
Minshew. He's
He's
in.
down in
Yeah, he's with the
Kansas City.
Kansas City Chiefs now. So I mean, you got to set your franchise up. Whether it's you want to go take a 1 year rental out on Aaron Rodgers, or if you want to get somebody in
No,
the draft. Remember who we're talking about here. We're talking about the Las Vegas Raiders. You don't put anything past the Las Vegas Raiders. You just don't do it. You don't do it. I would prefer them drafting somebody, but you just don't put nothing past them. But albeit though, this has been one of the more fun free agency periods to watch in a long, long time. Just seeing all these new faces and new places. I mean, it's just going to be 2025 is on tap to be a really, really exciting year, and we still haven't even gotten to the draft yet. So I can only imagine who's going to get who and who's going to go where. Who's gonna get Shadur Sanders? Who's gonna get Cam Ward? Who's gonna get Abdul Carter? Who's gonna get any of the Georgia boys? Who's gonna get Tyler Warren? I mean, just there are so many interesting prospects that we're gonna try to fit with with these franchises to see who can. I mean, this year's gonna be exciting. This year's gonna be exciting, and the free agency period just it kicked us off in the right way. So now we just got to let everything roll out, see how it goes. But like I said, I'm going Chicago or Washington as far as who's won free agency so far. Just on the sheer fact that they got really good impact players at positions of need to help their young quarterback succeed and get better. So those are my two teams as far as who I feel have won the offseason so far.
Can't argue with you there, man. Can't argue with you there. And as for Debo, I gotta be honest with you, BRF. I told Champ I wasn't all that excited with the Debo Samuel trade. Yes, we were able to get him, and we had to trade up for a fifth round pick. I'm sorry, but remember, Champ even called him Manos de Piedra, and remember, him and Champ, even Champ mentioned it. He and Debo, they've been hanging out at Daiquiris and Po' Boys. I think they've been hanging out at Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles at time to time when Champ has been to California. So I don't know what type of eating. I know it's good eating, but ain't the type of eating that a professional athlete should be having. I blame Champ for that. I mean, no wonder why Luka been having issues with his conditioning problems. Heck, you making Luka look making yourself look skinny compared to Luka, Champ. But I think for Washington, losing Jonathan Allen, we didn't get anything to trade for him in return. We talked about a Champ with Chase Young. I'm not mad at that because we didn't pick up a 5th-year option. And if he had a breakout season, we would pay him kind of like how the Giants paid Daniel Jones. We'll talk about Daniel Jones later on the show. Montez, I told you about Montez. I never wanted to let go of Montez Sweat from the get-go. But I do think for the Commanders, BRF, I do believe that the Commanders could win the division. Because if you look at history, when is it that a team in that division has won it back-to-back years? I'm talking about the NFC East division. The Eagles, you cannot tell me in the offseason they got any better. They lost all their veterans. They traded Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to the Houston Texans. Okay, they're moving into a younger direction. They're fresh off from winning the Super Bowl. Can they repeat it again? And plus, with Dallas Goedert, I think they should trade him. Because if you feel like you're not going to use him, well, if you're going to keep him, are you going to pay him the max? No, you don't want to pay him that much money. Maybe you can find another tight end in the draft or see what you can get. But Chicago, man, they won this one. And I think the GM is on hot seat, and as well as Caleb Williams. Now, Caleb Williams, I believe, has tremendous potential, but he does hold on to the football a little too long. He's going to have to learn how to get rid of the ball quick and fast. And I think with Ben Johnson there, I think he's going to help them out. Because if you look outside, they have weapons. DeAndre Swift, DJ Moore. I don't know if they're going to keep Keenan Allen or not, but they have Rome Odunze. They have enough pieces to produce. So all they need is for Caleb Williams to protect himself, get rid of the ball quick, but at the same time, he now has an offensive line. And for Washington, I like it. The team to me that took a step back, Detroit, because you lose both your offensive and your defensive coordinator, and there's no guarantee you're going to repeat and win that division again. The Vikings, I believe they got better in free agency. So did the Bears. Now, the Packers, they did lose A.J. Dillon. He's now with the Philadelphia Eagles, but we still expect the Packers to compete in the playoffs. And then when I look at the NFC West, the San Francisco 49ers, man, a lot of key departures from that team. And plus, I even you, champ, you gave me credit on this. Do you really want to pay Brock Purdy all that money? Because if so, you have like what, the 11th pick? And I recommended maybe they should look at Shedeur Sanders, because hey, what better way to put him in an offense with Kyle Shanahan, with a George Kittle? They may probably have to move on from Brandon Ayuk. So, but for the Commanders, even though I wish they could have addressed some of the defensive issues, I love the Tunsil, because Sam Cosmi is coming back with Tunsil. Okay. Brian Robinson Jr. is still there. Austin Eckler is still there. Debo is still there. We did lose De'Ami Brown. He's now with the Jacksonville Jaguars. But I do believe we can get ourselves a deep threat in this year's draft. I am concerned about is Jaden Daniels, the sophomore slump situation, but Adam Peters has done a good job. He's not looking for he did get Larry Tunsil, but he's looking for roster, scheme, fit, what works for us. All we need to do is stop the run. If we can find a way to stop the run and handle situational football, I do think Washington has something to. I think Washington can actually do some things. And I wouldn't be surprised if they get back to the NFC Championship game. Do I see them coming back? Only time will tell. But, champ, the floor is yours, my brother.
I got to give it to the Chicago Bears. Now, you've won the all-season Super Bowl, 2 years in a row. 2 years in a row. Last year, you loaded up the skill position. You loaded up the defense. You got Montez Sweat, because you just can't count the moves they made just in the offseason. You got to count the moves that they made during the season as well. You got Montez Sweat, and you was able to do some things. And not to mention, you have a pretty solid defense there. Last year, you loaded up the skill position. It's only a question if Keenan Allen is going to come back. But if he doesn't, you still have Rome and you still have DJ Moore. And you still have the tight end there. Cole Kmet. The only thing that you really had to pay attention to is that offensive line, which you have addressed. Then you went out and hired a hell of a – I don't think that's being mentioned enough. You went out and hired one hell of a coaching staff. You hired a hell of an offensive mind in Ben Johnson. He's going to be able to develop Caleb Williams. I know Matt Eberflus. I don't know. I don't know about him. I think they hired him as the defensive coordinator, didn't it?
Dallas did.
Dallas,
Dallas. Oh,
we talked about that.
Dallas did. My bad. It was enough. I don't know who they. No, they hired Dennis Allen. Excuse me. They hired Dennis Allen.
That was a hell of a pickup, especially what Dennis Allen could do on the defensive side.
Yes, they hired Dennis Allen. I thought it was Matt Eberflus. I apologize. My bad. Then Antoine Randall followed, Ben Johnson. So they didn't just build a whole bunch of players and say, we're going to spend a crap ton of money in free agency and bring a whole bunch of big names here. They went out and did what they were supposed to do by getting offensive line, getting coaching, and getting the players that they need. And look, for people who saying that Grady Jarrett is washed, you obviously was not watching last year. You obviously was not watching last year because he was still disruptive. So it's going to be interesting to see what he – and the thing is, he's very, very undersized as a defensive lineman, especially playing in the trenches like that. He's very undersized. So him, Montez Sweat, the defense that was already in place, Dennis Allen on the defensive side, Ben Johnson on the offensive side, that should prove to do some damage. But the thing is, you are in a blood and guts division. You had the Packers, you had the Vikings, and as long as Dan Campbell is in that division, I will never count the Detroit Lions out. I know they lost a lot of guys on that staff, but I will never count them out as long as they have Dan Campbell. But I think Chicago won the offseason bowl. I mean, it was a doozy. Now, I don't think this is being talked about enough, but is it fair to say that talking about Dallas, they lost the offseason bowl? That's the easy way out. That's the easy way out. And that's all. I mean, I'm just being real. But why are people not talking about the fact that the Los Angeles Chargers, outside of Najee Harris, they didn't make a lot of moves in order to get any weapons?
That's interesting, considering the fact that Jim Harbaugh is now there as the head coach. It's not like you have Brandon Staley there anymore. You would think with a head coach like a Jim Harbaugh, and you would think with a Justin Herbert, despite that awful performance against the Houston Texans, and the fact that it's in a market like LA, okay, but Champ, to your point, and you've mentioned this, Chargers are the Chargers. They look at more of the San Diego Chargers than the Los Angeles Chargers. And they look at the Spanos family. They're known for being cheap. I mean, they ain't as cheap as Mike Brown cheap, but I mean, and Lord knows the Cincinnati Bengals, to the point they've been freebasing. I don't know what they've been doing, but apparently, they've been drinking too much of that Hennessy. That's what they've been doing. But to me, Champ, the Chargers, I mean, you said that the AFC West would be more competitive. It's going to be hard for the Chiefs to repeat. But I'm like, Champ, look, man, I just don't see it. And I love what Denver did by getting Upshaw.
Yeah, then getting Dre Greenlaw and all those guys, they pretty much.
I'm sorry, Dre Greenlaw. I apologize, Dre Greenlaw.
Yeah, they pretty much they up the ante. This defense was already one of the top ones in the league, and then you go add a Dre Greenlaw. Wow. So, like I said, the easy way out be Dallas Cowboys. Like, no, the more we stop talking about it, the more they'll start making. I believe the minute that we stop talking about the Cowboys, that's when they'll start making more moves.
Listen, you're gonna get Mama Champ. Mama Champ is gonna get on me.
Now I'll say that. I'll say this on the Cowboys' behalf. They have, even though they have made some moves like these past couple of days. I think they did get Dante Fowler Jr. They did get Solomon Thomas. They did get Khalifa Elam, the corner. So they're not like moves of note, but they're at least trying to do something, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, which was probably their most overrated part of that team. So at the very least, they're trying to do something.
To BRF's point, and I'm glad you mentioned about the Dante Fowler move. You know that the Cowboys back in 2015, they didn't sign a guy for like a 1 year, $6 million contract until 2015 with Greg Hardy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
they
we
still
remember
got
how that turned out.
See what they do with that. They still got 48 million. But
But
I'm not very proud of the Chargers at this point. It's just like
the only thing they've done of note was they did bring Mike Williams back. That's the only thing they've done.
Yeah, but they didn't go out and just get weapons galore. It's just like Mike Williams, okay, but you need someone, Mike Williams has battled injuries, he's battled a lot of injuries. And you have to think about, now if you would have brought back Keenan Allen, that would have been a whole nother ball game. But you didn't really add a lot of weapons to this offense during the course of the season. You did not go out here just add, although Najee Harris is good, I think you could have done better in the draft. When you think about all the running backs that are coming out of school, when you think about a Quinshawn Jenkins, when you think about a Nathan Frazier, I think Nathan Frazier's coming out. When you think about a Cam Scatterboo, when you think about Henderson.
I would love Trevor Etienne in the LA Chargers offensive scheme.
Yes, I was just about to get to that, but I'm not very proud of what they have done as far as getting Justin Herbert any help, because it's going to be hard. It's already hard enough to face Patrick Mahomes, a top-tier quarterback of all time. Now you have to face a downright nasty defense that has just added Dre Greenlaw and the former All-Pro safety for the San Francisco 49ers. And if they're healthy, all HE-double hockey sticks is going to break loose in that division. And Bo Nix had an incredible season last year. He had an incredible season. If it wasn't for Jaden Daniels, he'd have been Rookie of the Year. So I don't like what the Los Angeles Chargers have done. It seemed like they was very, very, lackluster in their approach. Like I said, Najee Harris is a good back, but they could have done better in the draft with somebody younger. And I'm not very impressed by him. It's like it's not very, very pretty. And it's just like, I think he only averages like 3.9 yards a carry at a certain point, or 4.1. It's not very it doesn't jump out at you in your face and say, hey, this is one hell of a acquisition. So I'm not very proud of the Chargers at this point. I mean, like they brought back Khalil Mack. Okay, but not that splash that you need. So outside of Ladd McConkey, it's really going to just be, a whole bunch of running backs, which you already had J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. So it's going to be a three-headed monster at the running back position if you retain those guys, and no weapons downfield, no deep threat, nobody who you can force feed it to if Justin Herbert's in trouble. So there's a lot of questions about the Los Angeles Chargers that I really have to ask. Are you in the process of failing another quarterback, much like you did with Dan Fouts and Phillip Rivers at this point?
Mm-hmm. And then also, speaking of a team that also made some moves, how about Carolina?
I do like what they've done. I do like what Carolina's done. Even though they had to overpay to keep him, I do like the idea of locking J.C. Horn up. I did like that. They overpay. I feel like they overpaid for him, but they needed to lock him up. He's a young guy. He's a young, good, serviceable corner who can do a lot of things. Those are the guys you do want to kind of keep in house. But I mean, yes, low key, Carolina's had a pretty good offseason.
Yeah. Think about it, David Tepper, because again, the previous owner Jerry Richardson, before all the issues that he had, he went to 2 Super Bowls. Now, David Tepper right now, if you look at it, other than him, other than Shad Khan or Jimmy Haslam or any other terrible owner, you can make an argument David Tepper is actually the worst. And for him to have this type of an offseason, I got to give kudos to that. I really got to give kudos to what he's done. But, fellas, let's talk about Daniel Jones. He's now going to the Indianapolis Colts. there's gonna be competition because again, him, Anthony Richardson. Now, champ, you and I, we've talked about Anthony Richardson. We thought coming out of college, overhyped because we didn't see because even though we knew he was talented, we knew he had a big arm, we knew he was athletic, but he was never known for having great accuracy and stuff. Champ, I'm afraid if Anthony Richardson doesn't improve his game, and if Daniel Jones steps in and plays well, I don't know what to say for Anthony Richardson at this point because we saw what happened to him last year. I mean, just look at some of the performances that he had against Houston. I think there was one game in which he had like 2 completions again on the road against Houston. And if you looked at his play overall, now he did improve a little bit once he came back from the bench. You look at the game against the Jets, you look at some of the other games. But Anthony Richardson, if he doesn't have an improvement season, champ, then the Colts made a mistake by drafting him. And look, I'm not going to say he's a bust. I'm not going to do that. We still got to wait and see on that. But if he doesn't have any type of improvement whatsoever, especially when you have a guy like Shane Steichen calling plays for you, I don't know what to say. So, champ, floor is yours, man.
What's so funny about this is you have a guy who, remember the Minnesota Vikings was trying to take, trying to get Daniel Jones. They was trying to get him. Now whether he was going to start or not, that remained to be seen. But they was actually trying to get him. So for him to go to Indianapolis to say, hey, I might have the potential to relaunch my career, it's sort of like a call out if you really want me to be honest about it. I am a quarterback that's being considered a bust. And I go to a team with Anthony Richardson on there. Granted, I was telling everybody, that whole quarterback class, with him and Will Levis, they could not stop talking about him and Will Levis. Kept telling everybody, don't do that. Now we're being proven right. The mayonnaise man is not doing good down south, and Anthony Richardson has not done very good. Granted, he's been hurt, he's been injured, but his conditioning hasn't even been right. Remember, he took himself out of a game.
Yeah, he was tired.
Yeah. And that's not a good look. So if he has not improved himself in the off season in order to not only improve his conditioning, but to study the playbook and everything of that nature, it's really going to look bad, especially after you're taking 4th overall. And the thing is, hey, you don't know what you got till it's gone. The Indianapolis Colts have not been able to replace the great Andrew Luck to save their lives. They have not been able to replace him. And the saddest part about it is they have more on the offensive side of the ball now that he's gone than they ever did with him there. They have offensive line play. They have running backs. They have receivers. And you have an offensive-minded coach in Shane Steichen. You can't ask for more than what you've given. And guess what? The only team you really had to worry about in this division right here in the AFC South was the Houston Texans. And even they were having a down year this year. C.J. Stroud got sacked over 70 times, even with All-Pro Larry Tunsil in the lineup. So there's a lot of questions that was about Anthony Richardson when he first came out. He was a real project quarterback. And guess what? Every project quarterback is not a Randall Cunningham or Lamar Jackson or Michael Vick. We have to stop trying to think that every project quarterback is going to be those guys, because they're not. Or Josh Allen, let's put him as one of those guys as well, because remember, he came out of Wyoming.
Right.
That wasn't necessarily a Division I powerhouse. So he was a real reach to begin with. Remember when you had asked this one question? It's like, who would you take, Caleb Williams or would you take Anthony Richardson? Remember, I said Caleb Williams.
I did too.
So, and I mean, and if you really, really look at it, although Caleb might have had the better skill position player, the better line went to Anthony Richardson. The better coaching went to Anthony Richardson. In fact, they almost made the playoff with Gardner Minshew in the lineup. They was one play away.
And not to mention the fact that last year when he got benched for Joe Flacco,
Flacco made the defense look almost invisible certain games.
even one game against the Jaguars, in which he was running like he was Steve Young.
Exactly. So you got to ask yourself this. Is this do or die for Anthony Richardson? In the great words of Snoop Dogg, if you can't swim, you drown. You bound to drizzle at this point. And look, the water's already over your head at this time because guess what? You're in a weak division. You win 9 games, you can go to the playoffs. Even if you put on a reasonable performance. A reasonable performance. So the jury's going to be out about Anthony Richardson. And guess what? Daniel Jones going to Indianapolis saying, okay, they got a weak quarter. This is probably what he's thinking. They got a quarterback that's probably borderline at this point. Guess what? I'm going to go out there and see if I can steal the star position, get me another fat contract. Because you can best believe if Anthony Richardson gets hurt, if he doesn't play well, and Daniel Jones come in and plays reasonable and gets them to the playoff, that's another fat contract he about to get. That's another fat contract he about to get. And you got to ask yourself, what was Daniel Jones lacking in New York? Lacking good coaching, lacking a good running game, lacking great weapons, lacking great offensive line play, lacking good offensive line play. You have some of that now in Indianapolis. Their offensive guard, those 2 offensive guards are some of the better in the league. So, hey, Ant, AR-15, AR-5, it's time, baby. You ain't in the SEC no more. Those days are gone. Now it's time for you to perform. I hope that you've gotten ready during the offseason because if you didn't, and Daniel Jones, of all people, comes in and takes your position, in the great words of Gorilla Monsoon, you're in for a rude awakening.
BRF?
If Anthony Richardson lets Daniel Jones comes in and take his job, he might well just put the whole value meal in the bag and call it quits and just go somewhere else. Because at that point, ain't no saving him at that point. I mean, Joe Flacco, we saw what he did in Cleveland. He got Cleveland to the playoffs. I mean, he has a reputation for coming in. He has a reputation for coming in and playing well as a backup. So Joe Flacco, we can kind of excuse you a little bit. I mean, you're battling injuries, and then you had your whole thing with the conditioning and all that stuff. But when you came back, you showed up, you showed out, you played well. You helped the Colts win some games and ultimately almost get them to the playoffs. I mean, that team should be just that team should be spanked and slapped and everything for that performance against the New York Giants, getting thrashed the way they did the last game in the playoffs. So people are kind of like people were making fun of the New York Giants for winning that game and costing them better positioning in the NFL draft. Man, nobody. Hey, what are the New York Giants going to do if the Indianapolis Colts are going to come out and lay an egg like that? I mean, it kind of is what it is at that point. Anthony, I feel like Anthony Richardson, even with his lack of accuracy and just his lack of consistent quarterback play, I still think he has. If he can put it all together, he has a really, really high upside. But like his arm strength, his ability to run, make plays, his ability to extend plays, go in structure, out of structure. He has ability and the potential is there. He just got to display it on a more consistent basis. And I just hope he can do that. So Daniel Jones really coming up in here, he coming in with house money. He got nothing to lose. Like he knows he did not play well after he got that contract with the New York Giants. So he's already coming in. I don't want to necessarily say damaged goods, but he's coming in with, wanting to prove himself a little bit, wanting to show that, hey, you saw the culture with the New York Giants. It wasn't the greatest culture, and I wasn't able to thrive on that. So maybe come in with a Shane Steichen, maybe coming in with with a little bit more structure, coming in with a new belief in himself. Maybe Daniel Jones can come in and do something. But as far as Anthony Richardson is concerned, I mean, I feel like it's make or break for him this year because, I mean, it's not like he has a bad team offensively. No, it's not like he has a bad team with the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, you have Jonathan Taylor, you have Michael Pittman Jr., you have Adonai Mitchell, you have Josh Downs, you have Alec Pierce. I mean, it's not like you don't have weapons. You have pretty good weapons there with the Indianapolis Colts, and plus that offensive line is coming back. It's still a pretty good offensive line. So it's not like you don't have a good team there. It's up to him to really kind of put the focus in and really mainly improve his accuracy. I'm sorry, as you should not be touching anywhere in the high 40s, low 50s in completion percentage. You should be nowhere near that. I feel like if you're starting, you should be at the very least touching in the low 60s. I mean, if you're getting the reps and you're getting the throws, a reasonable ass
47.7% his completion percentage was.
Way too low. Way too low. Way too low.
8 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, with a passer rating of 61.6.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, his QBR, his QBR, 47.4, which is 27th in the NFL.
And the fact that the Indianapolis Colts made it to the last week of the regular season with a shot to make the playoffs, I mean, that speaks for the talent they have on that roster outside of him. So he's really got to be in the lab this offseason. He's got to understand it. He's got to understand throws. He's got to look at the playbook. He's got to look at the film. He's got these. I feel like these are things that he can correct. It's just understanding your throws and understanding your timing. Ball placement. Just understanding how to lead his guys, because a lot of times when you have quarterbacks and you have arms with the strength of an Anthony Richardson, sometimes the touch usually always comes after, like, the arm strength. Like you'll be able to make every throw in the book with the arm strength, but sometimes you got to be able to make those touch throws intermediate, just to kind of prolong drives and get first downs. So he really has to show vast improvement with his accuracy. I don't think that I feel like with his offensive talents and his ability to run the ball, he doesn't even need to be mid high 60s in completion percentage with his ability to extend plays and extend drives. If a guy like Anthony Richardson is in even the high 50s, like 58, 59, if he's in that range, then low 60s, if he's in that range passing the football to where you can't really key on him running the ball, the Indianapolis Colts as an offense has a much better shot to thrive, to really do things with the weapons that they have, that he's going to have at his disposal. I mean, I'm rooting for him. I want him to do well, but at the same time, as the 4th overall pick, you are brought in to take over and be the new face of the franchise. And if he does not succeed, this is going to be another one of those situations that sets back another franchise because because quite frankly, they drafted the wrong quarterback. But I'm rooting for him though, because I definitely think he has hella talent, and I definitely think he can really do something if he gets it, if he kind of gets everything together and and really fully understands what it means to be the face of that franchise. Because being the face of that franchise is like it's Peyton Manning and it's Andrew Luck, and you saw the careers both of those had. So you're following quarterback basically royalty when it comes to the Indianapolis Colts. So you got a lot to live up to as it is. But it's like I said earlier, I feel like he can do it with his upside and his potential. He just now has to go do it. And Daniel Jones signing there is not going to make it any easier on him, because the first slip up, they will not hesitate to put Daniel Jones in there. On the first slip up, they're not gonna hesitate, because right now I feel like that franchise is in a spot where they don't fully trust him. So the first slip up, they will yank him. I don't think his leash is as long as people may make it seem like. I don't think he's got a long leash. I think he's got to really show something the first month or so of the season. Otherwise, they're gonna open up that quarterback competition there. And Daniel Jones, he wants to show that he can be a starter in the league. So it's on Anthony Richardson now. He's got to do it. I mean, and there's really no excuses from this point. It's make or break for him. He's got to put it together, and he's got to get it done this year. Otherwise, I mean, you really don't know where his career goes if he can't succeed being the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts, because he's not an accurate quarterback. So you don't know where it goes if he doesn't succeed. But I'm rooting for him. I want him to do well.
Well, it's been reported by ESPN's Stephen Holder, Anthony Richardson will be working with Chris Hess. For those who may not know, that is the same guy who worked with Josh Allen and helped refine Josh Allen's mechanics. So Anthony Richardson, hey, at least he's starting off in the right step in the offseason, because he knows it's going to be it for him. And also contract year, because again, Indianapolis has to make a decision. Now, for me, whether if he becomes a success or not, I believe they should pick up his 5th-year option, because if he progresses and improves and wins a playoff game, if he doesn't make that much improvement, but improvement nevertheless, then you're going to have to pay him top-notch money. Again, you saw what happened with the Giants with Daniel Jones. They didn't pick up his 5th-year option because they felt like they were going to move on from him. And believe it or not, he made the playoffs, helped him win a playoff game, and eventually got his contract and paying him $40 million per year. So for Anthony Richardson, he's going to have to put in a lot of time in the lab and work on his game and refine his tools. But I wish him the best. But guys, let's talk about another team with a quarterback. Even though they're called New York, but they play in East Rutherford, New Jersey. I did like the New York Jets getting Justin Fields. That was a good pickup, because with Fields to reunite with his former Ohio State buddy Garrett Wilson, and also to Aaron Glenn. I love the fact that the New York Jets now that they've moved on from Aaron Rodgers, now they actually have a chance to establish a culture. He has a good enough defense. And Aaron Glenn, we know he's a defensive-minded guy. He was the defensive coordinator for Detroit. You've got some pieces on the defensive mind with Quinn Williams and Sauce Gardner and them. I think with Justin Fields, with Breece Hall, with Wilson, I don't think that the Jets are going to make the playoffs or anything like that, but I do think that Jets fans will be at least pleased. I mean, heck, think about it. I mean, a couple of years ago, when Zach Wilson took over for Aaron Rodgers, they were close enough to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So Justin Fields, before Russell Wilson, they were 4-2. So I kind of like it for Justin Fields, because you get to reunite with your former buddy, Garrett Wilson. I like what the New York Jets have been doing. Stop evaluating people based off Madden ratings, Woody Johnson. And focus on putting the right type of culture around you. Because we all know it's Buffalo's team to lose. We don't know what's going to happen with Miami. I love Tua, but he can't stay healthy. And then, of course, you look at the New England Patriots. They've done some things in free agency and in the offseason. So for the Jets, I do like it for Justin Fields. What's your thoughts, BRF?
Well, before I get into my thoughts about the Justin Fields move, I have a interesting little tidbit. I have an interesting little fact. I have a Madden fact, and y'all will get a kick out of this because I read this on IG. So we bring up the whole idea of Woody Johnson not acquiring Jerry Jeudy because his Madden rating was too low. So kick this though. Jerry Jeudy at the end of the season, I believe, had a Madden rating of 83, which was vastly improvement from the beginning of the year because he broke out. Pro Bowl, all that. Jerry Jeudy finally broke out this year. If you look at all of the New York Jets offseason acquisitions, you want to know what their average Madden rating is?
What?
Big old 72. and there's Jerry Jeudy breaking out, having a Pro Bowl season for the Cleveland Browns with the freaking with the merry-go-round at the quarterback position there. So you didn't hear from me. You didn't hear from me. I like the Justin Fields acquisition for the New York Jets. I do like it. I like it because they have weapons in place there. So I don't think he has to come in and feel like he's got to be the savior of the New York Jets franchise. He doesn't have to come in and do everything right off the bat. You have Garrett Wilson. You have Breece Hall. You have Braylon Allen. Nobody's talking about Tyler Conklin enough as the tight end, but he had a solid season for them last year. I mean, he's not like your typical. He's not in the George Kittle, Mark Andrews. He's not in that tier by any stretch, but he scores touchdowns and he makes big catches and he gets first downs in pressure situations. So Tyler Conklin he's a hell of a blocker at the tight end position. So shout out to him. He's one of the more underrated names in the league. That he's a solid pro. He's a solid pro. Just Justin Fields coming into this situation just feeling like there's more stability with the coaching staff. Like I said, I was a huge fan of them picking up Aaron Glenn to be the new head coach because we watch football and it was like a golden, if you want to call it a golden age of corners, when the position was like really, really, really deep, when you had a lot of teams that could throw their number one and their number two corners, and they both could be in Pro Bowl contention. You have to think about Aaron Glenn at his peak was one of the better number two corners in the National Football League, regardless of where he played, whether it be the New England Patriots, whether it be the New York Jets, whether it be anywhere he was. Aaron Glenn was a solid corner. So bringing a guy in with his mindset, I mean, Sauce Gardner ought to be like chomping at the bit to getting to work with a guy like Aaron Glenn, who understands coverages, who understands how to play on the boundaries at being the cornerback position. And Sauce Gardner, I mean, let's face it, having a down year in 2024, he should be very happy to see a guy like Aaron Glenn there. Going back to Justin Fields, like I was saying earlier, he doesn't have to come in to be the savior. All Justin Fields needs to worry about is getting the ball in his playmaker's hands, not trying to be like he was in Chicago, where he tried his hardest to try to be the Superman of that offense, and he just couldn't get it done because he just had absolutely nothing around him. He's got pieces around him with the New York Jets now. He just has to come in and almost do what he did in Pittsburgh. You would think in a way, kind of manage the ship. When you need to make plays, you make plays. When you have to make throws, you make throws. But for the most part, just making sure you don't necessarily always have to be the reason you win, but please do not be the reason you lose. So, and also in the contract he got, I think it was like a 2-year, $40 million deal. Not really a terrible deal for a guy like Justin Fields. That's not really a terrible deal. That's not bad at all. A guy his age.
Offered him.
Yeah, I mean, it's like for a guy who's still as young as he is. I mean, that wasn't a terrible way to go out at all. So I think he's going to come in focused. He's going to come in motivated, and he's going to want to come here, go to the Jets, and show that he can really do this and really kind of take the next step in his career and take it to ultimately where he wants to be, and that's be recognized as one of the better quarterbacks in the league. And I definitely think he's capable of that with who he has with the New York Jets. So I like the signing for him, and I like the signing for the franchise. I just don't want those fans to put these unrealistic expectations on him to come in and immediately have to be the savior to put this team back on the map and put this team kind of, back on the front pages of the New York press releases and the New York papers. So if I'm Justin Fields, I'm coming in here, I'm ready to go, but just you don't have to do too much. You don't have to try to go out and win every game. You got enough playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. All you got to do is just get the ball in their hands. Trust them to do what they have to do to get you first downs, to get you touchdowns, which ultimately, hopefully for the New York Jets' sake, turn into wins and maybe contend for a wild card spot. And I think that even though that defense has lost some pieces, most noticeably, they let go of CJ Mosley, most notably. But you still have Quentin Williams, you still have Sauce Gardner, you're getting Jermaine Johnson back from an injury, who was really coming into his own as an edge rusher before he got hurt. And I feel like the one person nobody talks about with the Jets is what's his name? I think they got an Anderson there too. They got a Will Anderson there too, if I'm not mistaken. So Will Anderson IV, I think is what his name is. He's blossoming himself to be a really, really good player himself. So they got pieces there. They have pieces there. So he doesn't need to come in to try to put his stamp on this team. Just come in, do your part, just distribute the ball, make plays when you have to. I think ultimately it could turn into good things for the New York Jets. I'm not expecting them to just up and just run away with this division, because at the end of the day, you still got the Buffalo Bills, and the AFC East is still the Buffalo Bills division to lose. And I'll just tell you right now, I'm picking them to win that division again, and we're way off of picks and all that other stuff for the 2025 season. But if I'm the New York Jets, I am mentally, I feel like I would feel like in a much better mental state as a franchise compared to where you were with Aaron Rodgers in 2023 and 2024. So shout out to Justin Fields. I hope he does well. But like I said, don't come in trying to be the savior, don't play hero ball. Just trust your playmakers to do what they need to do with the ball in their hands, and I think you'll be okay.
Champ?
We're talking about all these weapons, all these defensive players, and the coaching. And I give you that. But where that line at? Where is that line? He's going to be running for his life again, just like he was in Chicago. The quarterback can't throw on his back. So unless Olu Fashanu comes into his own and they draft very, very well in the draft as far as offensive line is concerned, we're going to see a repeat of what happened in Chicago with him running for his life. Remember, Aaron Rodgers was not nearly as mobile or as athletic as Justin Fields. He was running for his life last year. So we've just put Justin Fields not only in the same position, but in the NFC East as he was in Chicago with.
Well, Champ, if you guys are concerned about the Jets O-line, why don't you ask for a roster spot for the Jets O-line?
I am 6 feet. I'm 6 feet like 280. That is not gonna work. Not in this. Now you would have caught me like 10 years ago. Yeah. But that offensive line is not up to par. Like I keep telling y'all, and this is, like I said, people disagree with me, but I will say this to this day. The most important position is not quarterback. It's the offensive line. That's the only position where everybody's play is depending on you, but nobody's play can make you better. Is the offensive line. Battles are won and lost in them trenches. And when you have a comparable offensive line, you make good running backs look like Hall of Famers. You make good quarterbacks into Hall of Famers. You make mediocre quarterbacks into Pro Bowlers. So he still doesn't have an offensive line. So unless they Siri up that offensive line and Olu Fashanu comes into his own, he's still gonna have those same problems. And let's just face it, the Jets are gonna find some way to mess this up again, even if he has a decent season. So we're just putting him on the NFC East version of the Chicago Bears, on the AFC East version of the Chicago Bears. That's what he just did. He went from the Chicago Bears to an organization with stability in the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he went from there to the AFC East version of the Chicago Bears, because they don't have a line either. They got all these skill position players, good defense, but you ain't got no line, and a defensive head coach, and you don't know who's going to be the offensive coordinator to develop another quarterback. So it's still so much uncertainty, although he has a second chance. So he's going to be running for his life again in a division where you have the Bills at, and their defense stay ready. Even when it's not top 10, it stays ready. Sean McDermott is a hell of a coach.
Defensive minded.
So you basically took yourself out of Chicago and put yourself back in Chicago by way of the New York City Jets. That's all he did. I'm not impressed. The thing is, they'd have been better off getting somebody in the draft and trying to get an offensive line. They don't have it. You can put Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson, Jerry Rice, Emmitt Smith, and Barry Sanders all over the skill position. And you could top that off by having the two greatest tight ends of all time, and Tony Gonzalez and Gronk. If you don't have a comparable line, you're not going to get anywhere. So guess what? You left Chicago, took a break, got some stability in Pittsburgh, and then went back to Chicago by way of the New York Jets. That's all you did. I'm glad for his second chance. I think he deserved one, because I think if Chicago would have dedicated as much time and effort as they're doing with Caleb Williams, if they would have did that with Justin Fields, I think he would have been successful. Because we've seen flashes at times, just like we see with Caleb Williams last year. But you have no offensive line, and as a quarterback, when you don't have that line, that's your worst enemy right there. So
in other words, he made a mistake by leaving Pittsburgh and joining New York.
They didn't. I mean, you can't call it a mistake when they weren't going to bring him back in the first place. And the AFC and the state of the NFC East is in a much worse position than that NFC North was. So I mean, it's not. I mean, it'd be one thing if he was going to the NFC North and having to deal with the competition he's dealing with there. I mean, as far as like, even though he doesn't have the greatest offensive line, outside of Buffalo, who are you worrying about on defense in the AFC East? Miami, the only person you're worried about on defense is Chop Robinson. And who are you worrying about on defense with the New England Patriots? So I mean, it's not like you got like a murderer's row of defenses in the AFC East. So I mean, if they just build a competent O-line there, it's not like and honestly, you're not even really fearing the Buffalo Bills defense all that much, because they have weak points. So you're not really fearing them all that much. Can they make big plays and get, pass rush every so often? Yeah, they can do that. But you're not fearing them on like a quarter to quarter basis. So I mean, it's not like he's going to the AFC East and he's just like, oh my gosh, who I got to worry about on defense. So Now I agree with you on this one. It's up to the New York Jets to do their part in the front office to build up that offensive line. But I'm not going to the AFC East scared of any of those defenses.
You remember when you know this for a fact, BRF. You remember Adrian Claiborne, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, remember when he had that 5-sack game against that mediocre offensive line, right?
6.
So that just goes to show you what even the average defensive end can do if you are against a weak offensive line. So, I mean,
that was also one of them games where he just so happened to get the luckiest matchup of his life too, because that tackle he went up against did not deserve to start that night.
Again, and the thing is, he's going to have tackles like Adrian Claiborne faced every single night on his team, unless, like I said, Olu Fashanu comes into his own and they get some offensive line in the draft. So even if you don't have an offensive line, then the average pass rusher is going to have a hell of a night against you. Same thing with the defensive line. If you don't have at least a defensive line, then the average quarterback is going to just tear you apart. So, like I said, the battles are won in them trenches. And guess what? When you're not winning battles in the trenches, it's not going to work out for you. Justin Fields is very, very athletic. He's going to have that working for him. But I don't trust this front office. I don't trust this O-line. And guess what? It's when you have owners out here basing stuff on bad ratings, pretty much cut and dry where this organization is going. And like I said, you just went from the Chicago Bears less than a year ago. Now you're going back there by way of New York City. And that's the New York Jets, because they're going to do the same thing.
All right. Before we move on to other topics, shout out to our guy Ben from the block. Please go check out his podcast on football, basketball content. Brandon, I sent you the link, so whenever you have the chance, just let me know. But let's talk about the DK Metcalf trade. BRF, I'll let you go. Champ and I, we already touched on it. I thought Seattle won the trade for DK because they got a 2nd-round pick. They also got the 3rd-round pick for trading Geno. Look, unfortunately for Brandon, he's going to have to deal with Sam Darnold. He's not the biggest Sam Darnold guy in the world. But with all those draft picks, at least they can have something. And the other reason why I say Seattle won this trade is because DK Metcalf, yes, you reunite with him with Russell Wilson, but Mike Tomlin. You have George Pickens still. Now you have DK Metcalf, 2 very talented players, but at the same time, personalities. And BRF, look, other than Hines Ward, has he really had like a mild-mannered player at that position? You had Santonio Holmes, Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, Chase Claypool. And now you got George Pickens and DK Metcalf. And I don't know. And plus, to add insult into injury, only the Giants and the Steelers are only teams, and maybe the Vikings, that are trying to get Aaron Rodgers. And I'm like, if you put Aaron Rodgers under those circumstances in Pittsburgh, no. Pittsburgh's version of the Kardashians, Pittsburgh's version of real love and hip hop. Like, how much more drama could it actually be to see with those guys there on that team? I don't know, BRF. You tell me.
Well, shit, I don't know either, man. That's a good question. That's a good question for anybody. Hey, as far, I don't know, man. When you're dealing with trades like this, trying to figure out who won, for me, it's hard. It's hard to try to say somebody won a trade when it's a player for picks, because ultimately you have to see who those picks turn into. So I guess if you're looking at it from just an environment standpoint, with DK now basically having to share targets with George Pickens and you're still not sure who the quarterback is going to be. I guess from an instability standpoint, I guess you have to say Seattle won the trade. But honestly, you got to look at it from the standpoint of what those picks are going to turn into. Now, if they use those draft picks and they turn them into diamonds in the rough and impact players, then Seattle destroys this trade and they won it by a landslide. But at the same time, you look at it. You look at the Pittsburgh Steelers offense and what it could ultimately be if I'm just saying and it's a big if everybody gets on the same page, regardless of who the quarterback is, whether it's Russell Wilson or whether they bring in Aaron Rodgers, if they get on the same page, DK Metcalf and George Pickens have the ceiling to be a top 5 wide receiver duo in the National Football League. They have that ceiling, but this is just one of those trades where it's just like, I'll say this though, you gotta give it to Pittsburgh for being able to even swing this and get a player the caliber of a DK Metcalf there. You got to give it to the Pittsburgh Steelers to make it work. But I'll say Seattle for now, just because the volatility in that locker room has just gone up exponentially. So just from a mental standpoint, you have to see you kind of have to say Seattle won this trade. But I am very intrigued to see what they do with these draft picks and what they turn into, and ultimately who Pittsburgh gets as their starting quarterback, who's going to try to keep both of those guys in check as far as, well, okay, you didn't get your targets this time, but I'm gonna make sure you get them. That's for me is the biggest thing with the Pittsburgh situation, is having a quarterback that's going to be able to communicate and keep them calm as far as like one of them not having a good day target wise. And we know how George Pickens is when he's not getting the ball. That's pretty much established. His mental is not good when he's not getting the ball. So I think that's going to play that's going to play a big deal into it. Whether they bring back Russ or they get Aaron Rodgers or they get somebody else like in the draft or something, just depending on whoever falls to them in the draft. So there is
about as bad as Champ's diet. About as bad as Champ's diet.
Yep. Nah, it ain't. Nah. We ain't gonna do him like that. That ain't that bad. I mean, Jordan. I mean, as a Georgia fan, you know what I'm saying? We saw George Pickens' mentality multiple times get unleashed, whether it was on the field or stuff like that. So, yeah, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna give Champ a little grace. I ain't gonna sell him out like that right now. So like I said, this is for me is one of those wait and see approaches. When it's a player for picks, I don't want to be all like, oh, this team won, and it's like, bro, you don't even know what the picks are turning into yet. Let's see what the picks turn into before we want to give a win to a side. I'm gonna play the wait. Like I said, there are just more factors that's gonna go into this that's gonna determine what's what. So with this trade, I'm gonna play the wait and see approach on this. But yeah, just it was still kind of surprising, even when the idea came out that Seattle was dangling him and was going to be willing to trade him, and then Pittsburgh they pulled the trigger on it. So yeah, they shout out to them for landing them. But yeah, I'm gonna play the wait and see on this, because I really want to see who Seattle turn those draft picks into.
Dr. Champ or is Dr. Phil? The floor is yours.
Hey, look, I don't know how this is gonna work. You got two highly emotional wide receivers and you ain't got no quarterback. How's that gonna work? And Lord forbid, you bring Aaron Rodgers into that. Man, you talk about a crap storm going left. Only thing that locker room gonna do is mess up fast and pick up speed. I'm just being real. So the thing is, I like the trade. Don't get me wrong. But Pittsburgh, what are you doing about that quarterback position? You cannot pretend that you have a quarterback at this point. And you cannot put Gorilla Glue and duct tape on it and call it a quarterback. You've been doing this ever since Ben Roethlisberger retired. You haven't had comparable quarterback play, and that's what's holding you back. That's what's holding you back is quarterback play. And I had this proposal in a video I just made, and I'm just going to be real. Call up the Chargers and offer a first, a third, and TJ Watts in order to get Justin Herbert. I offer a first and a second in order to get Kyler Murray. But you have to do something about this position because it has not had any stability. You haven't, like I said, the most important position in the world to me is offensive line. But without a stable quarterback, it's kind of like having a company without a CEO. So you have to get that quarterback position squared away. Because if you don't, you're going to tick these two guys off to the point of, I don't know. I can't even describe the words on this show. I'm just being real. You have two very, very highly emotional, highly passionate wide receivers in George Pickens and DK Metcalf. Now, granted, some of those emotions are not the same. DK wants to win. And he mad as HE double hockey sticks when he's not winning. George Pickens, he gets mad if he doesn't get the ball as much. So you have two guys that are emotional for two very different reasons. But how are you going to get these wide receivers the ball when you don't have a quarterback? I don't see how you're going to get this done. You can't do this patchwork stuff forever, Pittsburgh. You got to either get on the phone and call somebody in order to get some draft, in order to trade, in order to go up in the draft, or you got to get on the phone and see if you can steal somebody else's quarterback. You have to do something. Because this patchwork with Gorilla Glue, duct tape, and, and rubber cement is not going to cut it. You need a quarterback. And the thing is, the reason I brought up, hey, throw TJ Watt into the mix in order to give you a quarterback. The reason why I said that is this. People are going to say, well, heck no, you don't trade TJ Watt for any quarterback. Look, Pittsburgh, hear me out on this. I never thought that y'all would get another Kevin Green. Yet you did. Never thought that you would get another Greg Lloyd. Yet you did. I never thought that we would see another Jason Gildon. Yet you did. I never thought we'd see another Joey Porter. Yet you did. I never thought we'd see another James Harrison. Yet you drafted real good and you did. So we never thought we would see these guys that you have drafted and put into these lineups replaced to the point where it's just like, damn, you might have upgraded when you got rid of these guys. I mean, that's how great that the Pittsburgh Steelers draft at the linebacker position and the wide receiver position. They draft so well, you don't even miss some of these guys when they leave. So, yeah, I would throw TJ Watt in the mix if it means getting me a quarterback. You can find another pass rusher. Might not be TJ Watt, but you can find another pass rusher. Your reason that you are in perpetuity at this point, in mediocrity perpetuity at this point, is because you don't have a quarterback. So you have two highly emotional wide receivers, and you have another Georgia Bulldog at the tight end position in the form of big old Dwayne Washington, who has a hell of a lot of upside. You have all of these weapons on offense, and you have a good running back in Ty Warren, and more than likely you're going to get another one in the draft, and you still do not have a quarterback. That is what's stopping you. Ooh. You can make all the trades in the world. It's not going to get you anywhere. So, Pittsburgh, I give you the win for the trade. I give you the win. Because like BRF said, we don't know what it's going to be as far as the picks are concerned. But my question to you, What are you doing about that QB position, and how you going to manage that position when you have two highly emotionally, highly passionate wide receivers? One who wants to win, and the other one is hell on wheels when he can't get the ball. How are you going to keep these two young men happy when you don't even have the means in order to do it? It's kind of like, I mean, it's weird. It's a good trade to make, even if you have even a comparable quarterback, but you have none. So you have all of these wide receivers, but you don't have a quarterback. It's kind of like having a bunch of bullets, but you have no weapon to fire it from. That's what that's like. You have 50 caliber weapon. You have a 50 caliber bullet, but you have no weapon to fire it from. That's what this trade is.
Very valid point, champ. Like I said, man, with Seattle, look, whether they go all in with the draft, whether they get generational talents, the fact of the matter is, I think for them, they can move on and they can start elsewhere. With Pittsburgh, same thing over and over again. Mike Tomlin's going to deal with players, and to your point, champ, I mentioned this. You actually mentioned this with Mike Tomlin. He's got to hold players more accountable. Stop being more of a player's coach. You can still be that, but at the same time, you should hold players accountable. And if they know they're doing something wrong, then you have to keep them in check. That's been the problem with the Steelers, particularly at that position. And I just see with the Steelers, they're going to have another season, average or above average, and whether they make the playoffs or not, but that's about it. But they got to go back to that old standard. And look, they need a quarterback. Now, the question is, are they going to get one in the draft? They moved on from Kenny Pickett. That didn't turn out so well. They had Russ. They had Justin Fields. I don't know. But what I do think for Pittsburgh, I can't believe I'm saying this. They really need to move on from Mike Tomlin and start fresh. Because the thing is, champ, what's the point of you being average or above average, not having a losing season? What's the point of having all these seasons of never having a losing record and you still losing the wild card in the playoffs? What's that to show? You haven't won a playoff game. Correct me if I'm not mistaken, the Steelers, they haven't won a playoff game since what? 2016? And that was the year when they went to the AFC Championship game and when they lost to New England. I mean, 2017, Saxonville. They missed the playoffs in 2018. They missed the playoffs in 2019. Let's not forget COVID season against your arch rivals, the Cleveland Browns, or some people called it, your little brother. They embarrassed you at your field. Then 2021, you lost in the wild card to Kansas City. No shame there. 2022, I don't even know if they made the playoffs that year or not. I don't know. But 2023, you lost in the wild card to Buffalo. And then you lost last year to Baltimore. I think for them, champ, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I do think it's time for them to move on from Mike Tomlin. Because, and yes, Mike Tomlin is a damn good coach. I'm not saying that Mike Tomlin should not be an NFL head coach anymore, but I do think it's time to move on. Because what's the point of never having a losing record and you still haven't lived up to the Steelers standard? What's the point?
I don't think they did. Like I said, I don't think it's necessarily time to move on from Mike Tomlin, but he has to change, number one. And number two,
you can't teach an old dog new tricks, though, champ.
I mean, you can if you really want me to be honest. Look how Tom Coughlin turned it around. Remember, Tom Coughlin was one of the most hard-nosed coaches that you ever want to meet. Remember, Michael Strahan, who's a Hall of Famer himself, said that he was a flat-out tyrant when he first got to New York. He was a flat-out tyrant, and he didn't like Tom Coughlin. And many blame Tom Coughlin for the early departure and retirement of Tiki Barber. So when he decided to loosen up and not be such a hard-nosed coach and take the more softer, gentler approach, that got them a Super Bowl. And then later on, it got them another one. At the same time, they had a quarterback for them to rally around. Now, Tom Coughlin won with the hard approach in Jacksonville, went to 2 AFC championships with a team that just started existing. Then he went on to New York, won 2 Super Bowls. So they need a quarterback in order to help them. This is the same thing that Bill Cowher went through. This is the same thing. And I hate to keep regurgitating the same information, but the thing is, Bill Cowher went through the same thing. He was going through a plethora of quarterbacks. He went through Neil O'Donnell, who he got to a Super Bowl with, granted, but he wasn't a Hall of Famer. He went through Tommy Maddox. He went through Cordell Stewart. He went through a lot of quarterbacks before he finally found his guy in Ben Roethlisberger, and then boom, you saw the results. Then Ben Roethlisberger not only helped that regime win, he turned right back around a few years later when Mike Tomlin took over and helped Mike Tomlin win his first Super Bowl. So that's what they need. They need to stop being so stuck in their ways. I blame more so the front office than I do Mike Tomlin, because guess what? If you really want me to be honest with you, with them not having a quarterback, you basically making chicken salad out of chicken poop. I'm just being honest. You're making chicken salad out of
he ain't lying. He ain't lying.
Out of chicken poop every single year. Plus, the offensive line is not one of the best offensive lines in the league. So, and guess what? You have the defense every single year because Tomlin is a defensive coach. But the thing is, the front office, you got to change. You have to be willing to take a risk. You don't have a quarterback. Why are we losing games down the stretch? Because our quarterback can't keep us in game. We have a revolving door. And you cannot have a revolving door at the quarterback position. The only coach that I've ever seen win that had a revolving door at quarterback was Joe Gibbs. There's a reason why he's the only coach to ever do that. And even then, he had what? A great offensive line. He had a great system there. They don't have a great offensive line in Pittsburgh. Their front office is not making moves. And even the quarterbacks they bringing in, either they are washed, either they're good enough but not great enough, or they're borderline. They haven't brought in this one big free agent and said, okay, here's the guy. Hell, I even would have respected it if they brought in Sam Darnold. At least he had a big season and you can see him for the future. But when you're not making any moves in order to get into contention, and this is why I have a problem with everybody blaming Mike Tomlin. Guess what? I'm not picking the draft picks. The front office is. The general manager is. The owners are. They know I need a quarterback. They know I need a quarterback. So if they're not doing their due diligence in order to help this team get a quarterback, and I got to make chicken salad out of chicken poop every single year and make Thanksgiving dinner and make it and dress it all up to make it look good, and then down the stretch I flounder again, whose fault is that really? You know these quarterbacks are not good enough in order to get us to the promised land. And even when we do get to the playoffs, you see the results. They're not good enough for us to win. So Mike Tomlin, although there's a lot of changes that he has to make, guess what? Their front office has to be willing to take a risk in order to get what they need there. It's kind of like you knowing you need bread for a sandwich and you're not getting it. That's just plain and simple. That's what not having that is what the front office looks like. Okay, I know I need bread in order to make this sandwich, but instead of doing that, I'm gonna go into the top of the cabinet and get some Ritz and see if that works. Might work temporarily, but you're still gonna be hungry later on. That's what that is.
Well put, champ. Hopefully
Shout out to Ritz Crackers, man. Shout out to Ritz Crackers. We ain't putting Ritz Crackers down. Shout out to Ritz Crackers. Maybe down the line, y'all can be like a sponsor to us, man. Shout out to Ritz Crackers, bro.
But champ, I understand your point, man. The organization, they have to do their part as well. I think with the Steelers, you're gonna have to make a serious decision in this draft with a quarterback, because if not, are you gonna look at some in free agency? Who knows? But yeah, if they acquired Sam Darnold, champ, that would have been a better situation. Here's a guy in Sam Darnold who's had success last year, come off from the Pro Bowl, making the playoffs, but you have nothing. At this point, you have nothing to show at this point. So I don't know what you're going to do at this point if you're Pittsburgh. But to have Pickens and Metcalf, I think you're going to have to convince Russ to stay because of the rapport that he has with DK and the rapport he had with George Pickens. Even though George Pickens showed his temperament from time to time, and even Russ came to his defense, still, either him or you're going to have to go with one of these young guys in the draft, which you probably may have to do that. So, hey, you got to do what you got to do. But fellas, let's talk about baby, face, or heel. Now, for those who may not know what baby, face, heel means in wrestling terminology, baby face means good guy, hero. Heel means bad guy, villain. So I came up with this topic a couple of weeks ago. I picked out 3 athletes or celebrities, and myself, Champ, and BRF are going to determine whether they are a baby face or a heel. Now, the first one, Steph Curry. I think it's pretty unanimous baby face because kids love him. He's revolutionized the game of basketball with the three-point shot. A lot of guys nowadays, whether if you're in the park, YMCA, LA Fitness, you want to shoot the three because of Steph Curry. He's prioritized the three-point shooting. And plus, with his ball handling skills, it's not often you have a shooter like a Steph with the ball handling skills as well, because we've seen a lot of great shooters. Reggie Miller, Klay Thompson, great catch off the shoot. Steph can shoot from a multitude of ways. On and off the dribble, catch and shoot, screens, whatever the case may be. He can create his own shot. Plus, great guy off the court, family man. He established the culture. I was actually there at that 2009 NBA draft when he was selected with the 7th overall pick. Blake Griffin, number 1. James Harden, 3rd overall. Great ambassador to basketball. Great ambassador to sports in general. So, no doubt, no brainer about it. Babyface. Some people could make the argument heel because of the fact that they were the Fantastic Four when they acquired KD, and people were just tired of seeing the Warriors' dominance. But babyface was Steph Curry because no off-the-court issues, his transcendent play, how a lot of kids emulate Steph Curry's game. Babyface.
I think the board is unanimous, Your Honor. And even when they made the super team, even when they had the super team, more of that hate was directed towards KD than Steph Curry.
True, but they did went to the Hamptons and try to meet with KD, even though it was KD's choice, though.
Yeah, I think that a lot of that hate was more towards KD than Steph Curry. Yeah, because the thing is, you won without him. So I think a lot of that hate did you turn right back around and win. So it's just like, yeah, you had that minor heel turn in those KD years, which I think when the era of the super team, which I believe is over at this point. Which the era of the super team, it seems like two guys went through that little quote unquote heel turn. Feel like LeBron went through it first when he went to Miami, and then was Steph and the Warriors. They went through that little minor heel turn when KD came there. But for the most part, and like I said, even when KD came there, it was more. You didn't hear people talk about how weak Steph Curry was. You didn't hear people talk about how weak Draymond or none of those guys were. Everybody was kind of jumping on KD, which at the end of the day, although, people might criticize him, my humble opinion, he was right. I wasn't going to win anything in OKC. And guess what? There was a lot of erratic play by Russell Westbrook. And they give the thing is they give KD a lot of help, but he played well in those games, that conference finals against the Warriors. He played pretty well. I don't think he was comfortable playing with Billy Donovan. I don't think he was comfortable in that environment anymore. And he wanted to win the championship. So guess what? He went to win a championship. It's kind of like how I'm just being real. It's kind of like how it's no different than the job that we have. Nobody wants to have a job where you always the smartest guy in the room. We're always looking at you all the time. Hey, what are you going to do? So when you need that boost, you go around guys who just as smart as not smarter than you are. So it's comparable to that. Now, granted, a lot of controversy is going to go from that. But guess what? He was right. He won 2 championships. OKC hasn't done anything since. James Harden hasn't won anything, although he's been on separate teams. Russell Westbrook hasn't won anything, although he's played with some of the greatest players of all time. And he tried to carry OKC along with Paul George and Carmelo and Steven Adams. Guess what? Neither one of those guys he played with won championship. He's the only one. So at the end of the day, people might get on to KD, but was he right? You bet he was.
BRF, is there anything you want to add before I bring in the next athlete?
Yeah. Well, because I feel like Steph Curry. Yeah, I definitely think the board is unanimous. I think you got to go babyface. I think Steph Curry is one of the. If I had a Mount Rushmore as far as influential players in the National Basketball Association, whether it be your play or just your play or off the court as far as appearance and stuff like that. If I had a Mount Rushmore of influential players, maybe a hot take, might be controversial. I think Steph Curry is on the Mount Rushmore as far as players who have influenced the game the most, whether it be through their play or other reasons. I look at Mike, I look at Kobe, I look at Steph, I look at Allen Iverson. I think that's the Mount Rushmore as far as influential players in the National Basketball Association, whether it be through your play or other things. Like with AI, it wasn't necessarily the play. It wasn't necessarily his play of Allen Iverson, even though I do think he's one of the greatest shooting guards of all time. It was that era of just the dress and the dress code, that hip hop kind of, that really, really dominated era of hip hop where the arm sleeves and the headbands and the tattoos and all that, and just how it just carried through the rest of the league, and how the players just became more comfortable with the expression as far as just being themselves. And that's why I have AI in my Mount Rushmore as far as players that influence the game the most. And I think Steph is in that Mount Rushmore just because I think from a schematic standpoint and from a skill level standpoint, him and his ability to shoot the three has just changed the game in so many ways. Unlike really what I would say, the only thing maybe comparison to that as far as just just a single individual skill set. Maybe I haven't seen nothing like this with an individual skill set maybe since when Vince Carter came in the league with the Duncan and then you just saw all these players coming out of high school, like might not have had the greatest skill set in the world, but they saw Vince Carter dunk, and they could jump through the roof, and they could dunk on anybody. So, and we saw a lot of that, like in the early mid 2000s, just guys coming in the league not having the greatest skill set, but one thing they could definitely do was they were athletic and they could jump and they could dunk. So with Steph and his ability to shoot three, you're seeing like exactly he's very relatable because like you playing pickup games with your boys. Ain't nobody trying to drive the ball all that much, man. Everybody trying to shoot from behind the 3-point arc because they see someone like Steph Curry do it. He's not the prototypical build that you see. He's not the prototypical 2 or the 3 or something like that. The wing that could shoot and dunk and do all that stuff. He's 6'3", 6'4", not even 200 pounds. But he's the greatest shooter in the history of the sport. And what he's done with the 3-point shot has just been amazing and might be something that we might not see for any time soon. So I think for me it's just his influence, his relatability, just not being the not having the not being the big body that can do all these athletic things. Like he's got to use more his IQ. He's got to use his just his skill set is just, even at his size, his skill set so rare, and being able to shoot the ball like he does, and he brought the relatability factor. He brought the likability factor. Even with those KD super teams, he brought the likability because it's like even when you wanted to root against the Golden State Warriors, you see Steph Curry and you saw him shoot, and you just like, how can I hate this man? I can't hate this man, especially when shooting the way he's been able to shoot and still able to shoot. Like, did y'all see that highlight a few nights ago? The catch fadeaway 3 that he the catch fadeaway 3 that he just dropped through the bottom of the net. It's like at some point when you're trying to guard him, it's just like, man, you just bow down and take it. you bow down and take it with somebody like Steph Curry. Like, you can do all you can with him. All he gonna throw something up. He's gonna go in, and you just bow down. You take your L, and you just keep pushing. So yeah, I think it's the likability and the relatability. Even with some of the greatest teams that he's been on, it's just hard to root against somebody like that. So yeah, the board is definitely unanimous.
All right, next athlete, Anthony Edwards. BRF, you can go first.
You know what? I think Anthony Edwards is a babyface too. I think he's a babyface too, and he's like, I feel like he's in that mode of like, for me, he's like early 03, 04 Cena. Saying what's on your mind, not being scared to express yourself on a mic or in an interview or something like that. But yet, when you go out and it's time to perform, you go out and you back it up and you perform. So for me, he's like a babyface. He's in that Doctor of Thugonomics. He's in that John Cena mold. He's in that Cena mold for me. I mean, it's hard. A guy like him, he's funny. Like I said, he'll say what's on his mind, but he's funny. He's not ashamed to speak his mind. And now I'll say this though: does he have things about his life off the court that might not be the greatest? Yeah, he does. We'll just say, for lack of a better term, we'll just say kids for this argument. That's all we gonna say. but even with that though, like Anthony Edwards brings a flair to the game that's needed, that's desperately needed, because he doesn't run from anything. He doesn't run from anybody. It's like He's like he kind of fits that mold. Giannis kind of fits that mold. It's like almost like I don't really want to join a super team. I don't want to make a super team. I want to beat all y'all. I don't want to join none of y'all. I want to beat all y'all. Kind of like that old 80s, 90s mentality with like the Magics and the Birds, and then Mike and Reggie and Patrick Ewing and all those guys back then. They weren't trying to form no super team. They were trying to they wanted to be the best. They weren't trying to make no super team. They wanted to beat the best. They weren't trying to make a super team. And it's crazy when you hear stories back then of this player could have joined this, X player could have joined Y player or stuff, and stuff like that. It's crazy when you hear about stories like that. I think Anthony Edwards for me is a babyface. Yeah, like he's got a lot of relatability in him too, just from the standpoint of like, that freedom of expression and just saying what's on your mind and not being scared to get it out there. But then also when you get on the court, being as good as he is as a player. So and I feel like it's hard to root against somebody like Anthony Edwards as well. So I'm gonna go babyface with Anthony Edwards. But like I said, he's in that Doctor of Thugonomics, Cena mold kind of babyface.
Champ.
He's a tweener.
That means he's in between?
He's in between. He's a tweener. Because he's one of those guys that depends on who you ask. Depends on who you ask. If you are paying attention to his basketball ability, how likable he is on the court, how he has those old school values as far as, playing both sides of the court, being a two-way player. If you're paying attention to basketball and basketball alone, you love it. You love that flair. So in that aspect, he's a heel. He's a babyface, excuse me. But if you one of these drama-filled characters that love paying attention to the drama more so than sports and are looking for something to talk about each and every day, then you will call him a heel. Because as you know, we're not just necessarily in the sports business. We're in the story business. And unfortunately, stories can overpower your ability on the court. And we've seen it not only with players from the present, we've seen it from the past. You saw with certain players who were all-time greats. Although they were all-time greats on the court, they had had the posture that will lift up a franchise. They had everything that you could want in a player. But that stuff that came out off the court about them, that's what kind of tainted them at a certain point. So it would really depend on who you ask. If you ask a basketball savant like we are, heck yeah, I'm gonna say he's a babyface, because guess what? Everything that personified in 80s and 90s basketball, or even the early 2000s with the Lakers versus the Spurs, he personifies that. Being a two-way player, wanting to win, being passionate, having these little outbursts every now and then. But in this era, and I call this era the social media era for a reason, because people are looking at everything. They're not just looking at your ability on the basketball court. They're looking at everything. The reason why everybody, can relate to LeBron, especially, guys our age, BRF, people can say, hey, although you may not like LeBron as a basketball player, you might not be able to say that he is better than Jordan, but at the same time, one of the best family men you ever want to see, always with his family. Same thing with Steph Curry. And although that should not be the story, unfortunately, things that are off the court do kind of take precedent over things that happen on the court. So True. If you ask me, babyface. But if you ask someone who loves the drama behind it, they will say heel. So I have to put him as a tweener.
Not to mention, Chad,
He put that well. I like that explanation. He champ knocked that out the park. He did good on that.
Absolutely. Not to mention, Chad, there was the one example with the mom saying, "No, you're not buying them Anthony Edwards sneakers. You're gonna buy these John Moran sneakers because John Moran takes care of his." Hey, look, that's what the
Yeah,
mom said.
I was trying to avoid the hell out of that. That's how come I kept dancing around. I kept dancing around the ice skate rink, trying not to get wet. So I've been dancing around it. So.
Somebody had to dive in.
Yeah, he had. I mean, that's why PSP is PSP. You know, I try to dance around certain stuff and then PSP. I think the best people about that. I think Hip and Flash are the best two guys for that because I try to dance around to be politically correct. Yeah. But
that's one of those where it's like you standing on the top of the ice pond. Champ's the one. He gonna beat around the edges of the ice pond, make sure nobody fall in it. PSP don't give a damn. He gonna hit straight in the middle.
Listen. I don't give a damn what type of criticism I get. People still get on me for the NASA hat and everything else, but hey, I'm gonna call it like I see it. Yeah. But as it pertains to Anthony Edwards, I can't say it any better than Champ. As a basketball player, you love it because he plays with enough passion, fire, and energy. And then off the court, you can't stand the dude. I mean, if you are like a typical family man, if you're a typical father, I mean, you probably view him probably the same way you would view Zion. And Zion, we ain't getting there. Well, yeah. I mean, it's hard when you being distracted with all them women down there. Not to mention New Orleans. So,
oh man.
But when you look at Anthony Edwards, he's a tweener. Basketball you love because he plays with passion, energy. He improves his play. He's getting better. Talks trash. And then off the court, you just can't stand him. If you are the traditional type of husband or father or any type of woman. That's just my opinion. And last one, Deion Sanders, prime.
Ooh, yeah. I'm still in Champ's thunder on this one. He's a tweener too. I'm still in Champ's thunder on that. Prime time peak Deion Sanders is a tweener. Yeah. I mean, there's no getting around that. He's a tweener too. He's the exact. I feel like he's the exact same way because it falls on whichever side of the fence you're on. Like when
Deion Sanders makes. Considering all the things that Jason Whitlock has said, not to mention even bringing Brett Favre on his show, given what he was accused of, Deion Sanders looks a hell of a lot better.
Exactly. But I think it's where you fall as far as like your feelings towards him because religious man, family man, he strives to be the best he can be as far as his values or whatnot, and then and then it's like when you go back to his playing days when you saw him on the field, it's one of those where it's like if he was on your team, you loved him because you knew he was going to back up everything at his peak. He was going to back up every single piece of talk that came out of his mouth because you knew he was going to back it up. But at the same time, if you were playing against him, you couldn't stand him. Because he's like, man, why I gotta hit his man running his mouth for? And then when he get out there on Sunday and he shuts down your best receiver, you hate him because you know why he run his mouth like he did on a weekly basis. Because you knew when he came into that game, he was okay. Like two things, he was gonna take away half of the field, and then if he plays special teams, don't kick the ball, don't punt the ball his way. You punt it to him, he's gonna take it to the house on you. Don't punt it to him. I mean, Deion was just that generational of a football player at his peak. And then you look at him now, it's kind of the same thing. It's kind of like where you fall on whichever side of the fence. Either you support him because of what he stands for as a man and his religious beliefs and all of that and what he tries to do, but then he's still, but he's deep. But I mean, come on, man, he's Deion Sanders.
He's
he's
real
he's
as
still
it gets.
he's as real as it's gonna get, and he's still one of the more cockier, cockier, kind of. He's gonna express himself. He's gonna say what on his mind. He's gonna express himself. But he has that type of belief in himself. He always has, and he always will, no matter what he does. And you look at the strides that he's made already in 2 years of being the head coach at the University of Colorado, getting his team to like 8-9 wins this past season, even though they didn't make the college football playoff, even though they didn't get to the Big 12 title game. It's the fact that he's made those strides with the Colorado Buffaloes, and I mean, Shedeur Sanders leaves. He gets Julian Lewis to go play quarterback. I mean, come on, bro. Like that's coaching, that's recruiting. That's what you do. But I just think as a tweener, because like I said, he's one of those that it just depends on where you fall with him. Like you're either gonna love Deion or you're not gonna stand Deion because of who he is, for the exact same reasons as far as who he is as a man, as a coach, as a sports figure, all that. So I'm gonna steal a little thunder from Champ. I think Deion Sanders falls in that tweener category too, because you're either gonna like the man or you're not gonna like the man. There's no gray in it. There's no gray area with Deion. It's black or white. You either like him or you don't. So I think he kind of falls in that tweener perspective as well. I think I would consider Deion Sanders a tweener as well. Because me personally, Deion Sanders is one of my favorite people on earth. I mean, let's just keep it a buck. But I'm saying everybody doesn't have that same kind of feeling towards Deion. So I mean, I'm gonna classify him in that kind of tweener role too. It's like you either like him or you don't.
I was gonna say heel because how he doesn't give a damn what people have to say about him negatively. I mean, because there are people in the media, Jason Whitlock, Paul Feinbaum, who have their criticisms of Deion, and particularly his son Shedeur Sanders, because now you're hearing draft reports about Shedeur Sanders being arrogant. And I think a lot of that people will say, well, that's easy to say because of his father. But BRF, you convinced me, tweener, because of his religious faith. And on a serious note, and Champ, you know this as well as you, BRF. Remember how he confronted Skip Bayless? Especially when Skip Bayless, what he said about Troy Aikman back
Yeah,
then.
and he put him on Front Street about it. He called him out for it. That's the Deion, like that's the family man. That's the good teammate. That's the guy you go to war with on a football field who's got your back. So yeah.
And listen, look, I don't cuss on my show, but fuck it, I'm gonna curse. You have to be a certain individual, like a Jason Whitlock, to say all the nonsense, the rhetoric, like he does. I mean, of all people on your show, you bring in Brett Favre, who was accused of stealing welfare funds in the poor state of Mississippi. And speaking of Mississippi, he was there during that time when Mississippi had that water situation. He donated half of his salary from Jackson State to help out the kids. Think of what he did, not only getting his son, Shedeur Sanders, but also getting Travis Hunter, a 5-star recruit, to come play at Jackson State and to help him go to Colorado. Your son and Travis Hunter, they're going to be top draft picks. Travis Hunter won the Heisman. Despite all the controversy regarding him and his girlfriend, Prime is still going to be there. But I say tweener, because if you are the media, from the media standpoint, you look at him as a heel. Because when you press him, when you ask him questions, and when he gives statements like that, you can't stand him. You look at him as a heel. Plus, flamboyant, the style, the glasses, the swag. But hey, that's who Prime is. Prime isn't going to change. And that's the thing I like about him. And if necessary, he's going to call you out. He's going to call you out, and he's going to confront you. Like I mentioned, what he did to Skip Bayless. I'm glad that Prime actually did that to Skip Bayless because champ, you even mentioned could have almost cost Troy Aikman, dare I say, his career.
Yes, because it's not it. Things like that were not as accepted as they are now.
Exactly.
And
Right.
what? Look, if you don't know what we're talking about, go look at the interview where Deion Sanders confronts Skip Bayless about what he said about Troy Aikman in his book back then. I think it was back in 1995. About what
I think that time frame's about right. Yeah.
yes. So that was not as accepted back then as it was now. Everybody, I'm old enough to remember certain shows that came on VH1 past 10 o'clock. You know, parents had a rage about it. So you know what show I'm talking about. So that was not as popular back then. So that was good on Deion. But as far as Deion, I gotta say he's a heel. Look, y'all remember back when Roman Reigns first became a babyface?
Yeah, people didn't like him.
And the thing is, you had every reason to like him. He had the mic skills, the charisma, he had everything. Same thing with Deion. He has family values. He's been coaching his boys since they were kids. People talk about LeBron opening up a charter school. Deion was doing that way back when. When you're talking about going to an HBCU and putting it back on the map, Jackson State had not had NFL scouts or college game day there since Walter Payton and Edward Brazile was there, and they got drafted in the 70s. College HBCUs on ESPN was a flat-out afterthought.
Unprecedented.
Not to mention, he got it so where they had planes. He got it so where they had clothes. He got it so where they had hotel fare and everything. Then when he left, he not only received backlash from the media, but also within his own community. So the thing is, the reason why I classify Deion as a heel is because he's everything that you look for as far as charity is concerned, as far as taking care of your family is concerned, putting your sons and putting people that you love in position, damn near adopting Travis Hunter. He's practically Deion's other son. Doing things like stepping up in the media as far as confronting Skip Bayless about stuff. I mean, if you go back and look at America's Game, 1994 San Francisco 49ers, you remember Merton Hanks. He said Deion on the field is flamboyant. He's borderline brash and everything. But off that field, he's like a guy who you can sit back on the porch and sip lemonade with and talk about life. Merton Hanks said that. Michael Irvin said he was a great teammate. And although he was very, very flamboyant when he was on the Dallas Cowboys and they was getting in trouble left and right with the law, guess what two people were never in trouble? I will say three. Deion, Troy Aikman, and Emmitt Smith. They were never in trouble. Deion never got in trouble with the law. He hardly ever got in trouble with the law. So when you think about all of the great things that he did for the HBCUs, the fact that he was a hell of a teammate, the fact that he was a hell of a father, he helped his boys get to where they need to be. Not to mention, when they left, made it a point to make sure that he stayed in order to make sure to say, hey, this is not going to be just a prop job. This is going to be my full job. Helping put the HBCU back on the map in form of Jackson State, which nobody has been drafted from there or been around that community as far as ESPN and the major sports network since Walter Payton. And the thing is, we're seeing a lot of trends because of Deion. A lot of HBCUs are, guess what, going to get former NFL players in order to coach.
Eddie George, Michael
Eddie
Vick
George.
now, Deshaun Jackson.
Yes. And before that, Eric Metcalf. He's the coach up here in at Morehouse.
Mm-hmm.
You see a lot of coaches. He set trends, so a lot of other HBCUs are looking for the prime effect. And like I said, what he did for the HBCU when he was there, guess what? Got him planes, partnered with J.C. Penney in order to get these guys suits, ties, made sure these guys not only respect the game, but respect authority. Made sure that these young men had $1,000 accounts open with the Bank of Colorado in order to make sure that they started their children's trust fund. So, with that being said, I label him as a heel because although he did all of those great things, every last one of those great things, everybody, even within his own community, because we are not going to sit here and take the easy way out and say it's just the media versus Deion. Even within his own community, when he left Jackson State, people was trying to point fingers at it. You shouldn't have used the HBCU. Guess what? There was a lot of controversy going on within that HBCU and within its athletic program that Deion was trying to address, but they didn't want to. So I label him as a heel because guess what? Although he did everything the right way, straight and narrow, rarely got in trouble, great teammate, great family man, don't see him all in the streets like that. Although he did everything right, much like Roman Reigns when he first became the champion, you're looking for a reason to hate him. You're looking for it. And the minute you find one thing, the minute it's just like, the minute he do so much as wiggle wrong, that's why I don't like it. So that's the reason why I label him heel. Because guess what? You could do everything. Remember, Kurt Angle was the same way. You know, I'm your hero. You know, I'm the hero. I'm here for all of you. It's true. Guess what? It's just like that. But guess what? Wow, this guy's corny. Guess what? You're just looking for reasons to hate him. Yet you have no reason to. If somebody sat down and said, if you legitimately asked a person, what don't you like about Deion Sanders? The first thing they would talk about, well, I don't like it because he's brash. Okay, outside of that, what athlete that you know is not brash? You're just looking for a reason to hate it. Plus, look at all of the players look at all of the former players with no coaching experience that he's given jobs to.
Exactly. Now Marshall Falk is now the running backs coach in Colorado. He also got Warren Sapp, Hall of Famer Warren Sapp, to help out. But Champ, I think he is a tweener because Prime is liked. He may not be liked by the media, and he may not be liked in some of the community because people felt like when he left Jackson State, people went as far calling him sellout.
Yeah.
And
I remember that too. I remember that too. I know I made at least one video or so trying to calling those people out, trying to call them a sellout. I remember all that.
But wait a minute, why are you knocking him for leaving for a better opportunity? I mean, if a job, Champ, look, you will always be a part of the Sports PSP pod, but if someone offered you a position for a better job, then of course you'd be a damn fool to stay with me, not take that position. You got to capitalize it. Take that position, gives you a bigger platform, more money, and everything else. And Champ, you can also make the argument for heel because, to be honest with you, when Prime left Jackson State, even CNN was covering it. They even had Bomani Jones on the show with Don Lemon. And I'm like, wait a minute. I get it. Prime left Jackson State. And it's a sad day for HBCUs. And it's sad for Mississippi. But y'all talking about that more than you talk about the Brett Favre situation. Wait a minute. Why is it not the same? Why are you not holding Brett Favre to that same standard as well? Brett Favre is accused of stealing welfare funds in Mississippi, folks. For those who may not know, Brett Favre was accused of stealing welfare funds in the poorest state in the United States of America, in Mississippi. And there wasn't as much coverage on that. But when he left Jackson State, am I lying or exaggerating, Champ? There was a lot more coverage on that.
Yes, exactly. The thing was, and the thing is, even in the last game, because remember, by that time, the contract was already done. I never forget when Jackson State played that last game in the championship. I never forget what the announcer said, because remember, Dion had made a statement after he got into it with one of the coaches, and his saying when he got on, College Game Day is, "Who is Swag, baby?" I remember that, and I never forget one of the MCs from one of the HBCUs that he was playing against after Dion left, and they made the Celebration Bowl. I never forget one of the announcers said, "Dion ain't here right now. See, I told you he wasn't Swag." So you even get backlash in your own community, even though you had to leave because there were so many controversies about it. Hell, the same thing. What's so funny is history repeated itself with Eddie George, because people were talking about, because he's no longer the coach at Tennessee State. He's moving on to Bowling Green. So people was talking about, well, why would you use the HBCU as a stepping board? He has no choice but to leave. Right now, given the state of certain economical things, Tennessee State is running out of money. They can't pay him. They can't pay some of the school off. It's in danger of closing. So you want me to stay at a school that's in danger of closing when I could go somewhere and get an opportunity? They even gave Eddie George the same backlash, not understanding that Tennessee State is in danger of closing. So that's the thing. He got backlash in his own community after everything he did for Jackson State for seeking a better opportunity. And like I said, the same thing just happened to Eddie George. Don't believe that. Look at the video that I just made on TikTok announcing that he went to Bowling Green. You'll see the comment. Why would you use the HBCU in order to do that? And the thing is, I literally said in the video that Tennessee State is in danger of closing forever. And you still want him to stay there? Why? He's in danger of losing the very football program that he's there to coach.
Not to mention jeopardizing his bottom line. So therefore, you have no other choice but to leave. But problem is, champ, people just don't see that. And even for our own community, champ, our own community, because again, we always talk about it all the time. People there like, you can't do what the white man do. But in that situation, like what are you supposed to do if you're Prime? The program is about to close. And this is a football team that has offered me an opportunity to coach and allow me to have final say. Damn right, I have to take it. But I say tweener, to BRF's point, because of the religious things, what he does for kids, how he inspires them, how he's able to recruit, how he's able to connect with younger people. And that's the thing that people, and that's the reason why Prime, I believe he'll do a better job with the recruiting than Bill Belichick, though, because I believe Prime, obviously with age, youth, Prime can connect with a lot of different people. I mean, look, even in this last game with the SWAC, when they lost the game, when the tight end dropped the pass, Prime didn't yell, cuss at the kid.
No.
He consoled the kid.
Yeah.
And Prime, he will do everything he can to get people in the best position possible. People will just say heel because, again, he's flamboyant, he's brash, he's cocky, he's arrogant, he talks too much style, too much personality. Heck, he has his own show with Roski Diaz, former host of 106 in Park. He's doing all these things, not focusing enough on football. But have we seen other coaches who've done that before? Let's not act as if Prime is not the only one, but because you just don't like his personality or his style, bravado, whatever the case may be. And look with Shedeur Sanders. I mean, you even made the argument, champ. I give you credit for doing the video on this. I hope to see Shedeur Sanders taking the draft, because you hope there's going to be some team out there that's going to be desperate enough, who has a good enough team to draft him and put him in the best position possible. But I say tweener, champ, because certain people in the media, and when I mean certain people like a Jason Whitlock, you have to look at him and you really asking yourself, what the fuck is wrong with this dude? Why are you hating on somebody? And it seems to me, anytime whenever Whitlock criticizes Prime, he seems desperate. I mean, look, I won't go any further what he said about Joy Taylor. That's a different story. But Jason Whitlock.
I mean, on that part about Joe Taylor, was he live, man? That skin do look good, though, man. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. That peanut butter skin do look good. You weren't lying about that part, but I get Jason a little bit. Peanut butter skin do look good.
For all people to bring in Brett Favre on his show. All people to bring in Brett Favre on his show. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You have the nerve, the audacity to judge a man who believes in his faith, who does and says all the right things. Meanwhile, people like you, Jason Whitlock, who can't even concentrate on skipping your last meal, you have the nerve, the audacity to criticize him and bring in Favre? Not to mention all the preposterous things you said about other athletes, which I won't get any further. Just go and do the research. And plus, with Skip Bayless, I had no problem with what he did to Skip Bayless by confronting him. Because, again, champ, that almost could have cost Troy Aikman his career.
Mm-hmm.
Troy Aikman could have been ostracized from the NFL. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, teammates like Prime prevented him from that. But I say tweener because, again, there are going to be people who like him. I mean, he's able to get celebrities. He's able to entertain. I mean, you get The Rock. You get celebrities to come to college game day to watch Colorado. Think about what Colorado was before Prime. They won one game. And they were able, and look, past 2 years, they were able to they were able to be successful. At one point, champ, weren't they in the discussion for the playoffs?
Yes, they was. I mean, unfortunately, they lost their last few games, but they lost the game that was critical for them. BYU was just a little bit too much for them. But yeah, he was being mentioned in the playoffs and a lot of things. I mean, plus he made it to a bowl game. It started off bad, but they ended up going 9-3, 9-4 on the year. And guess what? Look, especially when you think about coaches who, like Coach Gundy, who hasn't done anything in a while, for you to be that close to winning a championship, winning the Big Ten within only your second year, for your program only within your second year to have a Heisman, I mean, who more than likely is going to have not one, but maybe two first round, maybe not one, but two, or maybe 3 first round pick. Because don't forget about Jimmy Horn. Jimmy Horn's one hell of a wide receiver.
Yes.
So for you to do that within your first 2 years, not to mention bring in one of the top recruits as far as offensive line is concerned, because he got the number one offensive line in the state, in the nation, to come play for Colorado. So for you to go from 4-6, 4-8 to 9-3 within your first 2 seasons. Then not only that, you wanted the HBCU level as well. You was a winner there. You may not have won the national championship there, but you was a winner there. You got them there. You put them on the map. For you to do all.
You know what Deion Sanders reminds me of, champ, from a wrestler standpoint? And I've used The Rock. He kind of reminds me in some ways of like Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
Shawn Michaels. Yes. The second, not the first one, the second one.
Yeah.
Second run. Because Shawn Michaels, even in the second run, still, even though religious faith, but he still maintained that aura, the sexy boy, the boy toy, all that stuff. That's Prime. To me, he would be like the second run of Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I think Champ Prime. Look, you make a great argument for the heel part, but Tweener, because I do think Prime does have charisma, style, personality. There are people that do like him. There are people that do respect and admire what he does. Now, there are some people who feel like some people may not like him because, again, he is outspoken. He's a very polarizing guy. He is polarizing. But look, fine. I'll agree with you with Jason Whitlock with the Joy Taylor, the big rag peanut butter skin. But other than that, you ain't gonna convince me to fucking support Jason Whitlock in any way.
We love you, Joy. We love you.
But let's move on. Favorite Jeff Hardy moment. I'm gonna go Royal Rumble 2000, the Swanton on, I think it was either Devon or Bubba Ray Dudley, but the WrestleMania 17 when Edge speared him off the top of that ladder. Jeff Hardy, one of the best ladder wrestlers. Anytime, whenever you want to see the Swanton or you want to see him jump off a ladder, jump off the ring. Him, to me, there's him, Rey Mysterio, Shawn Michaels, rest his soul, Eddie Guerrero. As far as guys you want to see in a ladder or doing some type of jump or dive, man. That was the type of, I just love the types of punishment and the toll he took, and he just entertained the fans, man. So I would say the Royal Rumble 2000 and WrestleMania 17. Who wants to go? Go ahead, champ.
I'll take this one. 2002 ladder match, Monday Night Raw, Jeff Hardy versus The Undertaker.
Whew.
That's a good one.
That was a rub, even to this day, like we've never seen before. Whenever you get the approval of the dead man, that's something to behold. And the thing is, it's just unfortunate. I don't know what happened. I have to go back and look, but I thought that was the beginning of the best part when he faced the Undertaker in that ladder match. And as we all know, the Undertaker is not a ladder match type of guy, but for them to have one of the best ladder matches that you've ever want to see, and for him to have that, you just knew for sure that, the Undertaker's not going to win this. You just knew it. It's just like, as the match went on, you knew for some reason, it's just like, the Undertaker's not going to win. He's not going to win. But for him to finally get the better of him, and as Taker's pulling off on the bike, he said, "Hey, Taker, I'm still standing." And you thought Taker was about to go in there and just beat the snot out of Jeff Hardy. Instead, he raised his arm up and does some things that was a great rub. That's the best rub I've ever seen. Like I said, you don't see too many, but especially for it to be on national television on a Monday Night Raw. But when you get a rub like that from the dead man, it's kind of like when you get a rub from the dead man, from The Undertaker, it's kind of like getting finally getting that approval from that one uncle or your grandfather who is just hard to please. Once you get that stamp of approval from him, it's on from there. Because, Undertaker had so much pull. Remember, Miz got kicked out of the locker room at one point, and he had to dress in the bathrooms, in the public bathroom, and Taker was able to get him back into the locker room.
Right.
Undertaker did that.
Yep.
So when you get a rub from Taker, that is something to behold. So I have to say the best Jeff Hardy moment was Raw 2002 when he faced The Undertaker and put on one hell of a ladder match. And like I said, Undertaker's not a ladder match guy, but for him to go out there and perform like that and get that rub from The Undertaker, that was something special to behold. And look, I'm not going to take up all the ones. But anytime you had Jeff Hardy in a TLC match, you knew it was going to be something special. You knew it was going to be something special. But I have to say that Undertaker moment, that was Jeff Hardy and the Undertaker. Like I said, it's kind of like finally getting that approval from your father or your uncle that you know is hard to please, and you got that rub from him, say you're the next guy, and you take off. That was special.
BRF.
Oh man, Jeff Hardy moment. Anything? I mean, good lord. Anytime he jumped off of something high, like the WrestleMania 2000 Swanton, Champ brought up Royal Rumble 2000 off of the higher terrace, off of the balcony.
No, I did.
And Madison Square Garden against the Dudleys. Like, just, I mean, Lord. He had some crazy TNA spots too when he went over to TNA. The Bound for Glory spot where he came off of he found like the highest spot that he could at the entryway in the arena, like, and he just jumped like completely off through abyss through two tables. Not a lot of people are going to talk about it because of how it ended, but if he didn't have his issues, that 2011 heel run would have been like one of the greatest things I've ever seen. Had his demons hadn't snuck back on him again. Like that heel work he did in 2011, I didn't think he was capable of doing it. But the fact that he got fans to like literally hate his guts, going from being as beloved as a wrestler to being one of the most hated professional wrestlers on the planet was just one of the coolest things ever. Because just seeing Jeff Hardy from that, it's kind of like what we're about to see from John Cena starting next week. So it's just insane. My favorite Jeff Hardy moment, though, it has to be Armageddon 2008, where he finally won the WWE Championship against Triple H and Edge in that triple threat. I mean, that one for me, for Jeff Hardy, is still the moment, because we have all these debates and everything alike about who's the greatest wrestler that was never a world champion, who's the greatest wrestler that was never a world champion. Jeff Hardy's name started to enter these conversations with the Owen Harts, with the Mr. Perfects, with the Ravishing Rick Rudes. Like, his name was starting to come up as best wrestlers that didn't win the WWE title. And for that match, and if you haven't seen the Armageddon 2008 triple threat, y'all need to watch it, because that is easily one of the more underrated matches of all three of their careers. When we're talking about Jeff Hardy, we're talking about Triple H, we're talking about Edge. One of the more underrated matches of all three of their careers. That match was done. The storytelling was amazing. Like, you're thinking, oh gosh, it's like every time Edge and Jeff Hardy get in a situation where a singles championship on the line, Edge finds a way to outlast him. And then the Swanton, and then it was Edge that he actually pinned to win the WWE Championship, and the celebration afterwards. Because then it was Jeff was WWE champion, and Matt Hardy was the ECW champion at the time. So for both of them to be like, world champions of their brands at the same time, it was almost like the we made it moment for the Hardys. Them both being, granted, the WWE Championship was the pinnacle of the championships at the time, and the ECW title had lost a lot of luster. But even still, they were both wearing gold, and it was a cool thing to see the celebration afterwards, and you could just see the emotion just flowing out of him, because it was a long time coming. He had already gone through so much, and for him, for the WWE to put that kind of faith in him, to give him the WWE Championship like that, you could just see the emotion flowing out of him. And I think for me, that's still the Jeff Hardy moment for me, because there was a point in time where I didn't think I was going to get to see it. And since then, he's won a few singles world championships. So shout out to Jeff Hardy. Definitely shout out to Jeff Hardy. One of the more one of the unsung heroes of the professional wrestling industry. His, taking risk and some of the stories he's been in, and what him and Matt did for tag team wrestling, late '90s, early 2000s. Just he's definitely first ballot Hall of Fame when his career's done. But for me, it's just Armageddon 2008 just stands out for me with the storytelling and him winning the WWE Championship for the first time. It was just one of those things where it was just like so well crafted. And then the SmackDown afterwards, the big celebration, all the fireworks, the WWE Championship coronation ceremony for him. It was just, that was one of those moments where, as if you were a fan of Jeff Hardy, you finally felt vindicated and validated for all the work that he put in and all the trouble that he had gotten into and getting his life together. You felt validated for him. So my moment is when he won his first WWE title.
Well said. All right, guys. Favorite The Dream track. I'm gonna go. I got a gang of them. Falsetto. Rocking That Thing. Love King. Put It Down. Foreplay. From that album, Foreplay. Man, Dream, people have forgotten how good of an artist Dream was back in them days. Back in the mid 2000s, 2010s. Those tracks, those songs that he did, the voice, and also with his lyrics. I mean, Champ and I didn't even know what falsetto was until The Dream.
No, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't know? You didn't know that song?
No, I didn't know. A funny story about that. About that track. I kept thinking he was saying, because I'm very damn naive. I'm just being real. I kept thinking he was saying in a falsetto. And one day I asked one of my homeboys, I said, "Hey man, why the hell would he want to be in a falsetto?" He said, "You idiot!" He said a falsetto. So to this day he makes fun of me. He's like, "Hey man, don't mess around and end up in a falsetto." So that was one of the little funnier moments. But I didn't know what the hell a falsetto was at the first place when the song first came out.
But Dream Man, those are some of like my favorite tracks from him. I mean, even though in the 2000s you had Usher, Chris Brown, Trey Songz, people have slept on Dream. I don't think. I mean, Dream, when he was putting out those tracks, though, go listen to Put It Down. Go listen to Falsetto. Go listen to Love King, Foreplay, Michael, New Orleans. Go listen to all of his other tracks. I'm telling you, you be entertained. BRF or Champ, whoever wants to go.
I'll go. You want to go? Yeah, you take. Well, dude, man, Dream. The Dream is, because I mean I know he's like producer first, but that run, man, that was. And you did, and honestly, you really didn't talk about a lot of his features. But I mean, like,
I forgot. Shawty is. I forgot.
Shawty is a 10. I love that girl, particularly the Young G. But then I love that girl. I love your girl, particularly the Jeezy remix. But yeah, falsetto, rocking that thing. Yeah, and he has like and so many good features too. Like please excuse my hands with Plies and Jamie Foxx. Dog, that man, another good track. And one of the, and like I said, I mean, I'm talking about remixes. He was definitely one of the remix gods at that time, and like the kind of that late 2000s, early 2010s, in that little time frame. He was like one of the, like, I still think one of the, even though I still say one of the greatest remixes I've ever heard was the Rockin' That Thing remix, where he had
with Joel Santana, Rick Ross.
He had Fab on there. He had Joel Santana on there. I mean, that's still one of the best remixes I've ever heard. And so because that was because Because like back in the old day, the remix used to be like you kind of change the rhythm of the beat, you kind of change it up and all that stuff, and then it just became, you get a bunch of rappers, you get a bunch of other artists, you let them get a verse, and you just kind of let them, songs a little longer, but you kind of kick up the heat with the same song. And the Rockin' That Thing remix was that's a goated remix. That's a goated remix. But my favorite Dream track is probably Rockin' That Thing though. It's probably that. I mean, because I don't know, man. I just love that song. That's one of those you could be like you chilling, like you with your girl or whatnot, and it kind of set the mood a little bit. You hanging with your girl, you play that song, and it's just like it's just one of those songs. It's one of them songs you can't go wrong with playing, and you could be traveling, riding. I mean, and it's a riding track as well. So I mean, yeah. For me, it's probably Rockin' That Thing. But Dream put out so many good songs and had so many really good features, man. Probably can't go through them all, but let me tell you, it's for a good 2 to 4 years, boy. The Dream, the Dream was like that. So shout out to the Dream, man. Shout out to him. I say for a good 2 to 3 years, boy. He was hanging with the best on.
Champ.
Oh man, playing in her hair. Playing in her hair. Listen to the song. I'm gonna leave it at that. Listen to the song. I'm gonna leave it at that. I know it's not his song, but throw it in a bag.
The original or the remix?
Yeah, him and Fabulous, just throw it in the bag. Yeah, I love that song.
I love the remix too, though. The remix is fire too, though.
Yeah. Falsetto, which is a given. Look.
Especially that guitar.
Yeah. Yes. That was cool, man. And plus he was smooth with it, dude. I mean, he was real smooth. Dream was real smooth, man. He was. And man, look, let's not even get into all the songs he wrote. Man, he wrote over 400 songs. Dude wrote over 400 songs.
Not only a hell of a singer, but also a hell of a songwriter. Ask Beyonce.
Yeah. And Rihanna.
Mm-hmm.
Wrote Umbrella. Sometimes, in the early days, you could always tell it was him because they always said, you knew it was him. Because you're like, oh, that's a Dream song because that AA came in there. So yeah, the Dream was, man. Dream was smooth, man. I like Dream, man. And like I said, playing in her hair have to be one of my favorite songs, bro. And playing in her hair, throwing in the bag, that was Dream. Dream, if you just so happen to be watching this, man, I sent that song to a girl one time. So on iTunes, I sent that song to a girl one time. It was pretty funny, but the point was given. But I have to say, playing in her hair, that was a good one, man. That was great. That was a great song. Dream, I appreciate you, man. You made my early 20s an adventure, dude. Because whenever they put on your music at the crowd, I knew the slow dancing was going on, man. And I knew I was guaranteed about 3-4 numbers that night. Well,
also play the Makeup Bag song.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got a comment from my dude Dwayne Coleman. I bet you they won't hire Stephen A. Smith if they figure out where his hairline is.
What is going on with Miami? What the hell going on? Where that come from?
Lord.
You'll never find blum 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 a hairline like mine.
Yeah. His mama probably say, I've had nothing to do with you, Stephen A.
I've had it up to here.
You know damn well I'm clipping this shit.
I've been Stephen A. I've been here for damn that. He got to comb his hair with the Tesseract. What the damn Infinity Stones could get them naps out of this damn head, boy.
Is this a sports PSP pod or this is Def Comedy Jam?
Oh boy, Jesus!
Is this Chappelle show?
Oh, somebody said Stephen A. don't have dreams; he have movies.
Dude got a 5 head. He can headbutt the whole state of damn New York with that damn head, boy. I'm just saying. That stuff stick out here like it hair right here. It has just rested on the top of the head.
You could have just said Mr. Potato. You could have just said Mr. Potato Head and some shit.
I mean, I'm just saying. It looked like he put on a hairpiece in the morning. It just rests on the top of his head. He got that bird nest on the top of his head or something like that. I don't know what that is.
Boy, you can see past, present. You can see past, present, and future in that crystal ball. Boy,
Miss Cleo can see right through that.
Boy, she'd have a renaissance in her career.
Hey, BRL, we gotta chill, man. You know how us Southerners can get.
Oh Lord, I know. I have to. Okay.
Thank God my mama is asleep because she ain't hearing this. Thank God. But one last topic before we wrap up the show. 3:16. Of course, there's John 3:16, the Bible verse, but Austin 3:16. Anyone remembers King of the Ring of 1996? Now, before it was orchestrated for Triple H to win King of the Ring. That didn't happen, of course, because of the infamous curtain call at Madison Square Garden. So they gave it to Stone Cold Steve Austin. He fought one opponent. I don't remember who the first opponent was. Champ, maybe you can help me out. But Steve did have to go to the hospital because he had whatever amount of stitches in his mouth. He comes straight from the hospital, back into the arena, straight from the ambulance. He talks to Michael Hayes. Michael Hayes informs Steve that Jake the Snake, who Steve Austin beat in order to win King of the Ring, he said that Jake the Snake cut a promo when he used Bible verses to guarantee his win. And Stone Cold Steve Austin came up with John 3:16 because of the Bible verse and also on the football field. And you remember, guys, back in those days when you saw the John 3:16 on the football fields? So Austin came up with Austin 3:16. And when he said Austin 3:16, I just whooped your ass. Oh, my God. And then the next night on Raw, you saw all the Austin 3:16 signs and everything, man. It was just a great moment. I've said it before. A lot of y'all have John Cena as the GOAT. Some of y'all have Undertaker as the GOAT. Steve, I get it. He didn't do it for long. But, man, that energy, that charisma, the personality that he had, mic skills, wrestling skills. Steve, man, when he cut that promo, and that was some people could actually look at it and say, was that the beginning of the Attitude Era? Because there have been a lot of moments which we could argue the Attitude Era. You even brought up WrestleMania 13 champ, the submission, the match between Bret the Hitman Hart and Steve. Some people could also say the Montreal Screwjob, which led to the development of Mr. McMahon, the biggest heel. But Austin 3:16, you could make a very valid argument. It was the beginning of the Attitude Era. And when Austin finally had the opportunity, because remember, just a year before, he was fired from WCW in 1995. Shout out to our guy, Paul Heyman, for allowing Steve to express whatever he wanted when he was on the mic at ECW. But man, Austin, he's my GOAT as far as with the mic skills, the personality. like I said before, man, I would love to see him interfere in that match with Cody Rhodes and John Cena, and it's in Vegas, so he has no excuse not to be in that match. 400 miles away, and again, people would be tuned in. Just don't bring Hulk Hogan's ass to WrestleMania, but that's a story for another day. But Austin, when he cut that promo, oh my God. Everything about Austin, and then the Austin 316 t-shirts still selling like crazy. So BRF, what were your thoughts when you saw the Austin 316 promo?
To this day, I still think it's arguably the most important promo in the history of wrestling. I think it's up there. Like when you look at all time great promos, and as far as like how they influence a time frame of wrestling, you look at his promo, you look at CM Punk's Pipe Bomb 2011, and I know there's other promos out there that I haven't listed. But when you look at a time frame, I feel like those might be the two most important promos we've got the pleasure to be able to witness, and especially Stone Cold with the Austin 316, because I felt like I do think the submission match was like kind of like one of the catalysts as far as like the Attitude Era, because then it was like that transitioning period as far as Stone Cold went into that match as the heel, Bret Hart went into it as the babyface, but we were kind of getting into a new era of wrestling fandom to where it's like to where it was like the quintessential cookie cutter white meat babyface just wasn't cutting it anymore. And they were starting to really boo the daylights out of Bret Hart, whereas Stone Cold Steve Austin, they started gravitating with his style and started cheering him more. I feel like the Austin 316 promo was like like you already had the match and you just needed to light it. You needed the fire starter. And I feel like that was the fire starter because it got those fans invested in him. And with him being the heel at the time, the fans then really just started to really kind of gravitate towards him, and they wanted something different. And that promo really was just a catalyst to what we ultimately like got down the road. And yeah, I do feel like the Montreal Screwjob was like that last little bit of like, okay, yeah, here we go now, because now they're bringing that stuff out to the forefront. You see it in real time, like in front of your eyes. Like, was this really supposed to happen? I don't think this was supposed to happen like this. So it was just really the WWE, well, WWF at the time, just finding that new niche, that new edge, and they just tapped into it, and it just catapulted an era unlike stuff we had seen up to that point. The Austin 316 promo for me just really kind of it spoke to a lot of fans, and you could hear it when he was cutting the promo, and when he dropped that line in particular, the Austin 316 line, he damn near blew the roof off. And he's the heel. He almost tore the roof off of that with just that one line alone, because fans just weren't used to that type of charisma, to that type of edge, to that type of intensity cutting the promo. And that's why a lot of people, I think I look at Stone Cold Steve Austin, I think he's a top 5, arguably top 3 mic worker of all time, just because like, yeah, he wasn't necessarily, he didn't have like he wasn't like, like his promo style was different. He didn't have like the charisma of The Rock being able to do a whole bunch of funny stuff, even though Austin could be funny in his promos. Not necessarily. Yeah, like he was a different type of funny from The Rock. He wasn't like The Rock. He wasn't like The Rock's funny. His funny was just like the what, the what chanting. Like, I had a beer, I had 2 beers, I had 3 beers.
If there's one promo, I cannot give you all the details because again, we gotta be very careful. But there was one promo in which he said about Stephanie McMahon, About am I about to stun my first what?
Yes. I remember that. And the crazy thing, and he was retired at the time. That's the crazy part about it. He was retired. He was retired, and he's still dropping dropping heat. Like you just like Stone Cold Steve Austin is just one of those. Just there's a select few on the microphone that were just untouchable. And Stone Cold is like tier 1 untouchable. Like I feel like tier 1 untouchable is like him, Rock, Cena, and Punk. That's like tier 1 untouchable. It's like no matter who they're in the ring with, who they're battling on the mic with, it's like you have to bring your A+++ game, because if you slip up once, they're gonna destroy you. So it's just one of those. It's like Stone Cold. He's one of them ones. And the Austin 316 promo for me is just like I said. It's arguably most important promo in the history of wrestling. As far as just basically when you think about the Attitude Era, you go straight. I feel like when you think about the Attitude Era, you go straight to Austin. You go straight to that promo, and then everything that transpired after it was just like it was almost like it was like the snowball, and it was just like once it got going, there was just no stopping it. And to this day, like I could still, like I don't even have to watch that match. I don't have to watch that event. Like you find that video on YouTube of that promo. I can still sit and watch that promo because it's still to this day just that captivating, and you just believed every word he said at the time, being this new guy back in in the World Wrestling Federation, wanting to take what's his. And you salute guys like that who had a game plan, who had a vision, and they executed it, and it just worked. And that's why you consider Stone Cold Steve Austin the GOAT. For me, he's right there. Like Cena, for me, Cena's mine. But at the same time, though, Austin is just like you got your god tier wrestlers, in my opinion. And Stone Cold is he's there. He's there.
Champ, and plus to add on before Champ adds, Stone Cold was a huge reason why, because he used to watch a lot of the WCW because of Stone Cold. He watched the WWF back then.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, big fella.
Stone Cold was the reason why I switched over from WCW to the WWE. I'm just being real. I was more, like I said, everybody knows that WCW's roots are Southern roots, plus, that time slot back when, WCW Saturday night was at 6. I was tuned into that every week. When I think about that promo, I think about the changing of the guard. It's like there's very, very few moments where you say, well, this is when it changed. But when you think about it, the cherry on top of the attitude of the new generation changing over to the attitude era, I said before, I say it again, was the submission match. But the beginning of that transition was that promo. Because you listen to Vince in the background, he's not as welcoming to all of the cursing and all of the stuff like that. And if you look at Michael Hayes or whatever the hell you want to call it, I don't know what his name was back then. I mean, because, for me, Michael Hayes is weird. No, I'm not trying to be funny. But I think he was
Doc Hendricks. He was Doc Hendricks then.
Because when I first looked at it, I was like, that's Michael Hayes. But when they start calling him Doc Hendricks, I'm like, who the hell is Doc Hendricks? But
Bruce Pritchard was brother love at one point.
Yeah. But it's just like, who's Doc Hendricks? We have Doc Hendricks on standby. Okay, that's Freebird Michael Hayes, but all right. But if you look at Freebird Michael Hayes' face, you can see how he really like took a stutter step and looked around like, was he supposed to say that? It was really the beginning of it was cool to be bad. We was already in that era where it was cool to be bad. Gangster rap, grunge music, Pearl Jam, Beavis and Buttheads. We was already in that era. It just hadn't transferred over to wrestling as of yet. I say to this day, wrestling mimics society. It mimics society. And you will find nothing more relatable in society than cartoons and wrestling. It tells a story every time. And for him to say that and people to welcome it, like, because back when, I'll say back in 1992, Stone Cold would have been a heel if he had said that against Jake the Snake.
Oh, yeah.
He would have been considered a heel. He would have been considered a strong heel. But in 96, that was a whole nother era.
Time for change.
It was an era of change and an era that I'll never forget. Because when he cut that promo, that was the beginning of the best part. The Attitude Era is one of the best eras in wrestling. Not just because of the cursing, not just because of the anti-hero, but it made wrestling cool. You wanted to be there. You wanted to have one of the signs in the crowd. When you used to look at Monday Night Raw, it used to be full of white signs all over the place. It made you want to be there. It made wrestling cool. When I was a kid, I was considered, before the Attitude Era, you were considered kind of nerdish if you liked wrestling. Because you was talking about Hulk Hogan, you was talking about Lex Luger, you was talking about Bret Hart. The Attitude Era is the single biggest era that made wrestling cool across the board. And that's why I think the Attitude Era, although it might not have been the greatest in-ring wrestling era, but it was the greatest era to put wrestling on the map as far as it being cool across the board. I will say the Golden Era was great. I'm not taking anything from there. I'm talking about for my generation. My generation, it made wrestling cool. It made wrestling hip. Because I'm going to just be real, when you was, in 92, nobody give a crap about, even back then, when you went to school talking about Hulk Hogan, it's like, bro, Hulk Hogan, they would tell you back then, bro, Hulk Hogan ain't no real athlete, man. We ain't trying to hear about that stuff. But when you went to school and started talking about Stone Cold, everybody want to talk about it. And like I said, I'm not taking away from Hulk Hogan because of recently. I'm just telling you what I experienced back then. In the early 90s, when I would talk about wrestling, hey, nobody watch that wrestling. They would use certain words when it comes to describing it. But when Stone Cold and the Attitude Era came in,
it was real.
Yeah.
It was real, it was authentic, and it was refreshing, it was reinvigorating, and it's relatable. It got us in our generation to relate. And it attracted grown folks. People didn't want to hear about the cartoon superheroes. They wanted somebody that they can relate to. So, and Steve, reason why I love it with Steve, and he's the ultimate badass. But because you look at Mr. McMahon, Austin, arguably, in my opinion, the greatest rivalry in wrestling history. Because here you got Mr. McMahon, CEO, chairman of the company, biggest heel out there. People can't stand him because he's brash, arrogant, rich, power. But people love Steve because he's brash, but he takes no shit from nobody. I mean, he loves to open up a can of whoop ass. What better way? And people love Steve. He's the type of person you can go to a bar and have a beer with. He's the type of person, if you want to raise hell, that's your guy. If you want to wear the edgy clothes, that's your guy. Steve still has like a connection to even some of the younger people to this day. Like you see them wearing the Austin 316 t-shirts or the outfits. Steve played a huge factor. He was in a pop culture genre. And also, like I brought this up in JR. He believes Steve is the greatest he's ever seen it. But I did say at one point, JR and Steve is kind of like the wrestling version of Ahmad Rashad and Michael Jordan. That's the best way. I mean, from a wrestling standpoint, they are the wrestling version of Ahmad Rashad and Michael Jordan. based on their relationship, their chemistry, how the way they talk in ring, outside the ring, wrestling, football, booking, everything. I just it also tells you how special Steve was and still is when it comes to the mic skills. And imagine had he had that in WCW. If he were, I mean, and think of what he was in WCW. I mean, stunning Steve Austin. I mean, Bischoff even said he would have been mid card. He would have been a mid card type of guy. And him watching the HBO, the Iceman special on Richard Kuklinski, for him to becoming that sinister character. And then the name Stone Cold Steve Austin, which his ex-wife at the time gave him that nickname because she made him a cup of tea and told him, hey, drink it before it gets stone cold. I just love Steve because badass, rebellious type of person. If you want to see somebody raise hell, whoop ass, generates attraction, money. And I tell you, I guarantee you, if you hear that glass break, if Steve interferes in that match between Cody Rhodes and John Cena, especially with John Cena as the heel, if you thought Undertaker, and that was great, you don't think people would be tuned in to see Steve with that glass break? All hell would break loose.
It will be kind of like seeing. It'll be kind of like seeing, and to your point, it'll be kind of like seeing Jordan come back in Game 7 to help out LeBron with his fifth one. It'll be kind of like that.
There you go.
That would be great.
Man, and let me tell you something. Now, WrestleMania 40, I remember when the gong hit, when The Undertaker came out. That was arguably the loudest pop of WrestleMania 40 when Undertaker came. If Austin were to come out at WrestleMania 41, it would be the Undertaker pop times 5. Like straight up.
Because the minute you hear that glass break, sting.
They need to be in. They would need to be in an outdoor arena for something like that because a stadium would not be able to hold that pop. They need it. They need an open stadium for that pop.
I would love to see how would Steve interfere in that match. 2 matches I look at. When he interfered in the Rock versus Mankind match when Mankind won the championship back in 1999 or 1998, or Backlash 2000 when he interfered in the Triple H versus the Rock match, and then he hits everyone with a steel chair. Patterson, Briscoe, Triple H, Shane, and then of course Vince. But when you think of Mount Rushmore and when you Steve's there, you got Cena, you got Rock. I mean, if you want to add Hogan, Flair, that's fine, but you got to include Austin because before that neck injury, people have forgotten how good of a technical wrestler Steve was back in his early days, and with the mic skills, and with the swagger. And with the attraction he still has to this day, I still have him as the GOAT. And as far as with the money, other than Cena and Rock, can you or Hogan, can you name someone probably help make more money than Austin, other than the Undertaker?
No.
And I'll say this though, the Undertaker's aura is just who he was as a character. Undertaker was never the draw that Stone Cold Steve Austin was. Undertaker got his respect from his aura, his character, how he carried himself, how he wrestled. He just commanded respect, and the character was just so large in life. But when you really think about it, even Undertaker would tell you he was never the draw Stone Cold Steve Austin was.
But fellas, man, one hell of a conversation. Great show. That concludes the Sports PSP pod. Before we wrap up the show, any final words? Tell them where to follow you at. BRF, I'll let you go first.
Appreciate you, PSP. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure being on here with you, brothers, man. And it's always a pleasure. From the Empire State of the South to the Garden State, we rep it all the way through. BRF Sports is the TikTok handle. Y'all follow that. Follow that, please. Definitely appreciate the support. I'm trying to get back in my flow, making content. Good that we do have TikTok back, be able to express ourselves, get the content out there for y'all to enjoy. My link tree is in the bio, the Twitter /X, my Facebook page, my IG. Get on all those, and I also have a Discord as well. So if you want to get in there and tag me, hit me up. You want to chat it up, talk some sports in my Discord. It's BRF Sports. It's the Discord as well. I got an active link. I got an active invite link in my link tree bio as well. So definitely click it if you want to join in. Always a pleasure being on here, and just it's always great to get on here and kind of do this with two of my favorite brothers on earth, man. And God has gotta show y'all love, and gotta kind of just show y'all respect and what y'all are doing with your content, and just continued success to both of y'all. And as I always say, a topic not thought about is a topic not talked about. Shout out to everybody, and always a pleasure being on here with y'all.
Appreciate BRF, champ.
Hey, always a privilege, a pleasure, and an honor to be on here every Friday. Call it a highlight of Friday nights for a reason, guys. And hey, I'm just happy to be here, man. Just happy to be here. Tune in tomorrow to Undisputed GOAT podcast. We are back on Saturday night. We hit y'all with in the great words of Missy Elliott, we hit y'all with the he on Monday. So we finna hit y'all with the ha on Saturday. So like I said, I'm just happy to be here, man. It's a privilege, a pleasure, and an honor to always be here, man. Great day, great show, bro.
Always. And also, thank you for everyone who's stepped in and contributed to the Sports PSP podcast, almost at 92,000 subscribers. So let's just continue the great work. Appreciate everyone. Appreciate the fellas, the panel. Appreciate a lot. Again, Women's Month. Want to thank my mama. Want to thank my good friends from work, Maddie. Want to thank one of my good friends, Kaylin, who works at the office. I'll definitely come by, have a drink or two with you. Definitely want to thank my former professor from college, Jennifer Lazarus, for helping me maximize my potential and helping me develop and grow as a content creator and podcaster, and also on social media. So I want to say thank you for everything that you've done for me. And to me, I mean, I look at you like a mom. I mean, thank you for everything that you've done. And words cannot express how much you mean to me. Thank you. I want to thank everyone else. Brendan from the block, Mara knows best, Trent, Luis knows tunes, Broad, Certified Chris, Hot Take Kenny. The list goes on and on. For anyone else, I didn't mention your names. I apologize. But thank you for everyone who's helped the Sports PSP podcast. Please go follow to my new TikTok channel, Sports PSP Podcast. I'm gonna come up with some more content, more clips. So stay tuned. Always a pleasure hosting the pod. Y'all stay safe. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all weekend. And we is out. Peace.